Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November 19th, 2024 meeting of the Litchfield Planning Board. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call of members. Michael Croto, Chair.
Jared O'Connell, Vice Chair.
Russell Blanchett, member.
Letha Riley, member.
Travis Tucker, member.
Jesse No, alternate.
Kevin Lynch, Selectmen's Rep.
Okay.
Slow.
Welcome, everybody. With us this evening, Jay Mankara from NRPC, our circuit rider. Welcome. Our Joan McKibben, our planning board administrator, is not here this evening. And Jeremy Robodoy, who's a member, is not here this evening. He won't be attending tonight. So, public input on non-agenda items not listed on the agenda for this evening. Ms. Kleiner, I know you had something that was a non-agenda item. Did you want to address that now during this comment period, since it's not on the agenda for this evening, or do you want to?
I would love to.
Okay.
Get it over.
So good evening, Kim Kleiner, Town Administrator. I'm here on behalf of several of the town's department heads. And we'd like to address an issue that has arisen that we think needs to be brought forward to you. This past weekend, two of your newest members and I and Laura Gandia, the zoning chair, attended the 2024 Land Use Conference. One of the items that was addressed during that conference is exactly what I'd like to speak to you about tonight. So I'm not going to give it to the members that were at the conference because I know they have one, but I will give you each a copy of the presentation that was given at that land use conference.
Thank you.
That speaks to the item at hand. So when I came to the town, and you can specifically go to page 12, it was brought to my attention that items that were coming before the planning board were being emailed out by the planning assistants to the police chief, the road agent, and the fire chief. Individually, they were responding to the planning assistant, unaware of what each other had said. This was not found to be the most efficient way to handle things, and sometimes issues and data was being, quite frankly, missed. So quite often, a fire chief would make comments that may be relevant to the police chief. So we had several discussions. We met as department heads and directors, and we thought about things. And I think I've spoken to the chair. Mm-hmm. In my past municipality, we had a technical review committee. And it worked very efficiently because all of the department heads and the departments that can help weigh into issues before you sat, looked at plans, discussed them, and put joint comments together. So not realizing the directly how a TRC is put together, we kind of put one together administratively and have tried to address it that way, just at least to meet and make sure that department heads are getting the opportunity to weigh in. We've been meeting on the Tuesdays prior to the week prior to your meeting. the past several weeks, there's kind of been a breakdown. And although the department heads have been trying to form and meet at the acceptable time, I don't think that it's become quite as well executed as it was intended to be. So this past Tuesday, we had a meeting, and we would like the planning board to consider writing it into your regulations. We think it's important enough that you have the department heads, especially road agent, police, and fire chief, and that you have their comments in front of you prior to you making any decisions for your consideration or not. But we find with it not being in your regulations, it may not be as well executed as it was intended to be. So that is what they would like you to consider. So it was a very interesting that this item happened to come up at the conference just as we were speaking about this. We did work with the planning assistant to create a document, and certainly we can edit it in any way that fits the planning board's needs. But we would put all the comments together and we would make sure that you have them before you meet to discuss the project. So that's our ask. The other thing that the planning assistant asked me to look into, and I understand you will be speaking about this later on tonight, so I would just like to give Mr. Mankara the comments that I have received from our stormwater expert. There's 3 very slight items that he's asked just to make word changes to. Other than that, what you have was acceptable with the MS4 permit. It does change the 15,000 square feet, and if that's the direction the planning board intends to go, that's certainly fine, permit-wise. We would ask that somewhere down the line, we think about how we are incorporating plans together and getting them to my office as the authorized agent by the Board of Selectmen to submit the annual report. Any plans that are reviewed by the planning board and any actions taken have to be submitted in that annual report. And that has been a challenge each year to get all that data together. So we should, at some point, document how we're going to share that information so that I and our expert don't miss anything that the planning board has done. So I will give the comments to Mankara, and I thank you very much for hearing me out this evening. Thank you for letting me cut in front of everyone.
Well, thank you for being here tonight, and we do appreciate it. And I certainly think that is a very reasonable request in terms of putting together a technical review committee to review these plans beforehand. I think that's absolutely essential. So we will take that into consideration. Thank you.
Well, we are all here to support you in any way we can.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim, go home, please,
Yes, sir.
because you never leave this place. She's always here, always.
Okay. The first item on the agenda for this evening is a conditional use permit for a detached accessory dwelling unit at 590 Charles Bancroft Highway, tax map 23, lot 35. We have applicant Heather and Robert Libby. Are you folks present here this evening? Okay, so what I'm going to ask is you folks come and have a seat at the table and introduce yourselves to the board and state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay. Good evening, Heather Libby. I'm at 590 Charles Bancroft Highway, Litchfield, New Hampshire.
And I'm Robert Libby at 590 Charles Bancroft Highway.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
So we have before us this evening a conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit. We have seen these before. We just did one recently. So I guess I will ask, Jay, did you have an opportunity to review this
I did.
application? Okay, and everything seems to be in order?
I think so.
Okay, okay. All right. And looks like all fees have been paid, and was there a, did you submit a plot plan with this, or did you?
It's up on the screen.
It's up on the screen, okay, perfect. All right,
You just gotta look up around here sometimes.
all right.
By the way,
So, seeing that the fees have been paid, there has been an application submitted, and Jay has had an opportunity to review it, and we do have a plot plan for us this evening. The first thing we want to do is maybe do a motion to accept for completeness of the application. Does anyone want to make a motion at this time to accept the application for its completeness?
Did we note that he's a voting member tonight?
Oh, yes. Jesse, I know that Jeremy is not here. He's typically our regular member. You are a alternate. Would you like to vote in his place this evening?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll have you vote in his place, and you will become a voting member tonight. Thank you. Thank you. So, does anyone want to entertain a motion to accept the application for completeness?
I'll make a motion, we accept the application.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, is there any further discussion regarding that? All right, all those in favor of the application for completeness for accepting for the 590 Charles Bancroft Highway, tax map 23, lot 35, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained. Motion passes 7-0-0. Okay, thank you. All right, so we've accepted the application for its completeness. Maybe you folks can, I know you provided a little information in your application of what you want to do, but maybe you can give us a little bit of background for the board, what it is that you're looking to do this evening.
We are just basically looking to build a dwelling for my parents to move into, that we're here in the room right now with us,
Okay,
for the remaining of their time, so we can be eventually their caretakers and such forth.
okay. Very good. And it looks like this would be for your parents, and there is no potential impact or anything regarding the application. And you have had the opportunity to review, does the building inspector have an opportunity to review the plan at all, or?
As far as I know, everybody has seen it.
Okay.
So we started this way back when Jeff was the inspector, that which told me I had to go and get my surveying, my septic design approval, my state approvals. And then the new building inspector told me I had to come to the board first before I even did all that. So
Right.
now we got everything.
Okay, great.
Now we just need you guys.
Perfect. Okay, very good. Jay, any comments that you would like to make regarding this application this evening?
Just a couple. One, just kind of, could you speak to the size? Because, clearly if you look at the exterior dimensions and do the math, it comes up to 832 square feet, which is larger than we allow.
Right,
If you
so-
could just speak to that. And then secondly, could you just talk a little bit about the design?
So the way we were looking, we were told it's 800 square feet of livable space. So if you do the foundation footprint, is your 800 and just over 800 square feet. But then if you take your interior walls and your exterior walls and shrink it all down, if you do the inside dimensions, it does work out to be 800 square feet in total.
And could you speak a little bit just to the design? What's the style? How's it going to look?
Just basically, it's pretty much a box with a porch on the front, nothing special, single floor. It's one bedroom, 1.5 bath. It's gonna have an office and a washer and dryer in a basement. That's, so,
It's all right there on the
Yep.
plan, it says.
Thank you.
I I just know these little things.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
So, I see that there's a power line easement through the property.
Yep.
Is the driveway in that easement?
Yes, it is, and we do have a written letter from Eversource allowing us to put the driveway in that right away,
JUD,
Yeah,
or JUI, I
JUD.
think it's called.
whatever they call
Joint
it.
use
Yeah.
agreement.
We do have that letter.
Awesome.
Did you provide a copy of that to,
We have it right here.
They mailed it to 580 instead of 590, so they had to.
We just received it the other day, actually.
okay,
Does anybody?
yeah. Take a look at it.
580 is down from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know.
And when I
think
read
that's
the
what
stuff,
Francine
it said
knows.
580, and I go, huh? I know your place.
Yeah.
'Cause you have the town stone.
Yes.
Okay. I've been there many times.
Yes, you have.
How low's the river? Never mind.
It's very low.
Well,
Very low.
Probably
No,
walk
it is.
across there right now.
Yes.
You walking now?
You could, I
probably
think. I
could.
really think you could. You see a lot more rock than you've ever seen.
When I was growing up, I used to walk across it a lot and down in two spots. The rest of it you couldn't up there because the water was high, but you get down there, I'm gonna say across from McQuestion Farms and in the back, I could walk across up for the last 25 feet.
Wow.
On the Merrimack side, where I had to swim. And turn around, walk back, swim back and come back. I was old enough to do it at 13. And I did it many times since.
Anybody have anything else they want to ask?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi,
Hi.
welcome.
Thank you.
So I see existing garage to be removed.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a demo project as well as a build,
Yep.
right? Okay, so, all right, and I see, you can't put the driveway has to go around because you've got the pool. Okay.
Yes.
The pool and the septic system.
Oh,
right
the
there,
se-
So we're
yeah.
forced to go around it all.
Okay, I see that now. Okay. Yeah, it's a really long way for the water line to go, I was thinking too, but, that's gonna cost you.
They're plumbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
We're a plumbing family.
Still, that's a long way.
That
Yes.
Manchester?
going.
I'm gonna check.
Manchester
Oh,
Water.
you're lucky.
Yes,
Yes,
we are.
Okay.
We fought for that, don't
We
worry.
did.
We fought for that water.
Okay.
Manchester build.
I understand, and Manchester will take it from there and from the road.
Mm-hmm.
It's common practice.
Would this be considered at all regional impact with it abutting Manchester?
I would say where it's just an ADU, I wouldn't think so, no.
Okay.
So typically with conditional use permits, the planning board amended its regulations or zoning regulation ordinances pursuant to the planning board authority to grant conditional use permits for detached accessory dwelling units in the residential district. I'm gonna run through the criteria with you, and just make sure that what has been met regarding that. This is under 507.06 of the zoning ordinance. And it cites the criteria so that the detached ADU shall be located only in the side or rear yard of the property, which it sounds like that's what is being done. The detached ADU shall not contain more than 2 bedrooms. That appears to be what is in place here. As to parking and driveway access for the ADU shall be provided in a location and manner that maintains the single-family appearance of the property.
Yep.
It appears as though that is the case. There are no additional curb cuts that shall be provided. The detached ADU shall be developed within an existing garage, barn, or other similar outbuilding, or shall be designed to be consistent with the character and appearance of the accessory building, customary for a single-family dwelling such as a garage, barn, or other outbuilding. The detached ADU, whoops, I missed my place.
Under G, detached ADU.
No, I went too far. Sorry, hold on.
See it.
Oh, here it is, okay. Let's see. Talked about that. Attached ADU located on the same lot as the primary dwelling, and said lot shall not be subdivided in a manner that results in the separation of the detached ADU from the primary dwelling unit. And finally, the detached ADU primary dwelling or lot shall not be converted to a condominium or any other form of legal ownership distinct from the ownership of the primary dwelling to assure compliance with the requirement. The property owners at the time the ADU is established shall be required to execute a restrictive covenant running in favor of the town, which shall be recorded in the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds and a copy provided to the building inspector prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. And you understand that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay,
It's all typed up for us at home,
awesome.
so we're good to go.
Okay. Jay, do you have anything else?
I do not.
Does anybody have any other questions before I
This-
open it up to public comment?
It's a minor one. So, of course, you're right next to the river, and I checked online, and the part of your property is probably in a 500-year flood zone. Is there any risk that anyone has identified with flooding?
Nope.
No, we've never had
No.
anything listed for flooding. Even when we went for home insurances, there was,
The state hasn't said anything about it either.
And knowing the codes in this town still, that area is fine, because it's above the 100 year. That's all you had to be concerned about, which is down in the middle of town, where the golf course was underwater.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah, we're up pretty high.
there's a plateau and then there's another,
At 30
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah, we're probably at least 30, 40 feet up from the
Goes up.
river.
yeah, it's like two
Good.
stages.
You go Watts Brook, and then it comes back uphill.
We don't want you floating away.
I will say that the house that I own now was in the 1936 flood, and so was the old town hall.
Yeah, we've seen pictures of
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Okay? So we had a cleansing back then.
Okay.
Which is good. Take everything out of the basement.
At this time, I will open it up to public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on the conditional use permit for this application? And hearing none, I will close public input, and I will bring it back to the board. We have a plan in place. I think it's pretty straightforward. We've gone over the conditional uses requirements for the criteria that they have to meet. So I guess I would be looking for a motion for approval, or if you want to conditionally approve, certainly can do that as well. What's the will of the board? What you guys want to do?
I would make a motion that we approve it as is. As presented, he meets the criteria as set forth in the regulations so far. He will. The building permit on the house, that's a separate issue, as long as you meet the so many square feet, that's all there is to it, and you can do it the way you said it, it can be done. So the structure is not really, the livable area. is
Right,
what
that's
we're
how we read it, was livable space, it was
Livable area,
800
really.
square feet.
And that's how you managed to get it, and that's great thinking on your part. You plumbers are all like, okay.
Well, 800 square feet is not a lot of space, so
No,
we
it's
try,
not. I
you gotta
understand.
get as much as you can, you know?
But they're not that tall.
Oh, they live in a, what, a 760 square
We'll
foot
say
tiny house now?
650.
Oh, 650, so they're moving up.
I will say, I've known these two, especially the guy in the back. He worked in the construction for a long time.
So you made a motion.
Yeah.
I have a motion by Kevin. Do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
A second by Travis. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, I'll take a vote. All those in favor of the conditional use permit for a detached accessory dwelling unit at 590 Charles Bancroft Highway, tax map 23, lot 35, applicants Heather and Robert Libby. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Anybody abstaining? All right, motion passes 7-0-0. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are you sure you want to?
My parents live across the street.
Might as well get them all close together,
Keep
right?
them all together.
You're across the street.
My parents are across the street.
I know that now. Now I think about it.
Now they're behind us.
Yep.
You may want to take your,
You used to be a nurse in Manchester. I'll say that.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
I like to come see it when you get it half. Absolutely.
Bring your swimming trunks in. Come for a swim.
I can't, I'll walk up. Oh, God, it's a small world.
okay, moving on in the agenda this evening. The next item on the agenda is an amendment to a site plan approved on July 2nd, 2024 at 21 Charles Bancroft Highway, tax map 1, lot 23. Owner Elon Kessler. Previous approval allowed serving barbecue at Knowles Tree Farm from June to the second week of November. Applicants are requesting serving barbecue from November through the same time frame as Christmas tree sales. Is the applicant here this evening?
Yes, sir.
Yes, why don't you guys come forward, have a seat at the table, and introduce yourselves to the board. Good evening.
My name is Alon Kessler, and I own Noel Street Farm with my family. And thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to be here today. And also, I feel that I should apologize for my appearance. Ordinarily, I would have worn something nice, but I'm just sort of like in the thick of the tree season right now. So, pardon the sap and the dirty clothes.
You have to work. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening.
And I'm Kevin Chartrand. I'm the owner of Willie Jewell's Old School Barbecue in Nashua, and going to be the lessee of the barbecue stand at Noel's Tree Farm.
Okay. Well, welcome, gentlemen. So as the board may recall, we did have this back in July. There was a notice of decision by the Litchfield Planning Board that was issued for this this site plan, and the conditions were as follows. Those the hours of operation was going to be Thursday through Sunday, noon to 8 p.m. from the first week in June to the second week of November. There was supposed to be a dumpster located on site with regular pickup. Number 3, any speakers on site should be facing inward to the property to lessen noise off-site. There was going to be no more than 50 vehicles on site at one time. The building inspector's requirements: 1 portable restroom per 50 people per day, and 1 portable ADA restroom on site. A washing station hooked to the existing well, flaggers if necessary to direct traffic in and out of Route 3A, and then approval of any state permits. So that was the original application that was submitted to us back in July. So it appears as though there is a request tonight to amend this site plan. Have you reviewed any of the, have there any plans been provided to you, Jay, or?
No, I think in this case, they're really just looking to, correct me if I'm wrong, modify the condition of approval that noted that the sales were going from June to the second week of November. So I don't think there's any changes to the plan. It's just they're seeking to extend that date, I assume, until.
That's absolutely correct.
What, the 25th?
Yes, please. Yeah.
All right.
The first time.
So, does anybody, maybe you can give, what was the, can you provide the board just with a brief overview of what it is that you're, in terms of seeking, in terms of the time frame for the Christmas tree sales and everything?
Sure. Well, we had originally, as requested, wanted to open up the barbecue sales during the time as mentioned, but we just are both very busy individuals, and despite our best intentions, we weren't able to get the project off the ground just due to business and life in general. And we thought that perhaps it would be a good idea to expose the public to the barbecue product while they're already there for the Christmas trees. I thought it would be a nice peripheral offering to what we're doing there already.
Okay. All right. So you're just basically looking to change the, is it the most, for the most part, the sort of the dates and the hours of operation? Is that really what you're looking to do in terms of an amendment or modification?
Yes, please.
Okay.
We might also want to clarify that the 50 vehicle limit is specifically for those, for the barbecue, because
Yeah.
I'm assuming
Thank you very much for pointing that out. Yes, that was kind of, yeah, thank you for pointing that out, yeah.
How many vehicles do you have on site during this season?
Um,
At a simultaneous time?
I'm not exactly sure, but I mean, we want to sell as many trees as possible. So we, certainly more than 50 a day, that's for sure.
And just to kind of piggyback on that, I think the months that we had intended originally, you know, the barbecue was going to be the sole focus for people to be coming on the premise, whereas in this situation, I don't think people are going to want to be fighting through all the cars of people getting Christmas trees to come specifically just to get barbecue. So it's like Alon said, it's just a peripheral, you know, almost a concessions type environment where they would, you know, grab a bite to eat before they leave.
So you don't think this is going to induce more demand over the existing traffic from the Christmas trees?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
It wouldn't actually be in my favor to do so. If that was the case, I would probably not want to do it because, I mean, you know, our greatest source of revenue is from the Christmas trees. So we don't want to lose any parking for someone just coming in to get a sandwich or some barbecue. You know, we want to utilize all the parking for the Christmas tree sales, but just thought it would be a nice add-on that, you know, people could buy barbecue while they're there.
And you cut your own there too?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's good.
It's going to be a great year for that.
Oh, yeah, you watering them? That might. It's
Have
been
you
dry.
It has been a little dry, but the trees are actually in spectacular condition.
You're in good soils.
Yeah, it's just the
Yeah.
environment is just perfect.
Very
So, yeah, the trees look great.
You're in flat farmland there. It's all, it goes down 18 inches to 20 inches of long, well, and the water table out there is not that far below the ground.
That's correct.
That's why it's a good area there. It's a good
Yep.
spot.
Yeah, the trees grow very well, so we haven't been affected by the drought.
Yeah, we used to grow corn out there years ago.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, so have you had any neighbor complaints since you started in June? I mean,
Oh, we didn't open the barbecue.
Okay.
we haven't opened yet.
okay,
Yeah.
so you haven't done any, despite the fact that it says you're, I'm sorry, I'm new.
Yeah.
so-
That's okay.
Okay, so there's nothing, we don't have a benchmark then yet for your neighbors, but your neighbors are,
Yeah, in the
you've
prior,
obviously talked to them, right?
in the prior, like when this was before us originally, like there were some neighbors specifically from across the street in the
Sure.
55 plus community that were a little concerned about the noise.
Yep.
Because obviously, like this time of year when the tree sales are happening, there's a lot going on there, and that's why we added that condition that the any speakers were facing inwards. For
So if they
example.
play music or something.
Sure, yeah,
Um,
okay. All right, oh,
I don't think they would be any more concerned due to this, if they're saying that they don't want to attract more cars than they already have. I'd expect them to linger longer with this potentially, but that's it.
So this is gonna be from November, the 1st of November, starting in November, or whenever, to, where the Christmas tree sales. When do Christmas tree, I can't even say that, Christmas tree sales end, essentially?
At Christmas typically, but it usually falls off a few days before.
So would you be going till right before Christmas, or are you gonna extend it after? What's your time frame? Just curious.
No, we wouldn't extend out after. It would probably be a few days before Christmas Eve, because I would think at that point there wouldn't be the demand.
Will be gone.
The draw would be gone. Yeah,
Okay.
we're trying to capture the beginning of the season, and yeah, when it's busiest.
It's all based off the Christmas tree. They can stop, get a snack, bring it home. No different than what they had before. Some vendors, well, their own little shack there they had.
Yep.
So would it be like December 20th, 22nd, or something like that? Is that what you would, the cutoff?
I
would
think
be?
that around the 22nd would be a very
Okay.
Yeah.
applicable date.
Yeah.
Would you want a few days later just for flexibility purposes? So you don't have to come back for the board?
I was just gonna say, if you just want to put it on Christmas Eve, just to be safe, so we don't have to
December
get back and
24th?
forth.
24th.
Or 24th. Yeah,
Okay.
we won't be there. Yeah.
Unless you want to go there Christmas Day and serve them.
Hey, people love barbecue.
I have a sense of humor. I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is any food being prepared on site or is it brought in?
Brought in. Yeah, it's all being brought in from my restaurant in Nashua daily. So.
Okay, so is it being cooked off site and then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-cooked by.
And are you gonna still be using the, is it gonna be noon to 8 PM? Is that gonna be the time frame? Or do you wanna change that?
So it's down from Thursday to Sunday right now as it stands.
Correct.
So I would think we would want to extend it for the entirety of the week.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, I guess while we're here, might as well do, is there any hesitations to extend it just for his hours of operations for the business?
So I guess what's gonna be your hours of operation? Is it gonna be?
We're open from 9:30 to 7 daily.
7 PM,
7 or 7:30?
7, you said? All right, and so this would be what, is it gonna be Thursday through Sunday? Is it gonna be Monday through,
That's 5 days.
or is it gonna be 5 days a week?
7 days a week.
7 days a week,
7
yes.
days a week?
7 days a week. Why would you want to not sell Christmas trees on a weekend? You know what I'm saying? Just think about it, you know?
You definitely would.
Yes,
So-
you would.
Then do we want to differentiate the hours, but leading up to Christmas tree sales and then after, in the amended?
So that's up to you. You could leave the, you could amend it all, or you could have from the second week of November through December 22nd, you could allow 7 days a week, 9:30 to 7 PM. Could do it either way.
Is it the second week of November that you want these new hours, or is it earlier?
For this year, or for you talking for next year?
Well, any year,
Well, yeah.
because
for
this
the-
will apply to any
Obviously,
time.
yeah.
Whatever you're gonna say.
Yeah, right now your approval is from the first week in June to the second week of November.
Mm-hmm. I would think that that's okay, right?
Yeah, sure.
So the existing, what we previously agreed to till the second week of November. And then starting at the second week of November until December 24th, you want
Yeah.
the 9:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 days a week.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Barbecue for breakfast?
Sounds good to me.
Oh, yeah.
Who brings you lunch?
I actually did a concessions up at Bedford High School for their JHL football league a few weeks ago, and we were there from 9 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night, actually, and we did smoked sausage breakfast sandwiches, and they sold like hotcakes. So, thinking we could duplicate something like that in the morning here. So,
Do you know if the fire department or the police department had an opportunity to weigh in on the amended plan at all? No? Yes.
I'm not aware.
Okay.
I know I have plans to meet with Scott over at the site.
Okay.
I was, obviously looking to get through tonight, and then he and I have been in talks to just meet over there and, I guess, do a once over before we open up. But that was the only thing that I was privy to.
Well, the way I see it, last year you ran it, right?
Yes, sir.
And the police were there because of the traffic and everything else.
That's correct.
We're going to have the same thing here this year, I'm sure.
That's right.
Because of Route 3A, so they're pretty well, they're gonna know exactly what to do. It's pretty cut and dry,
Okay.
okay?
That's
As for the fire point, and I'm being, my background is building construction and dealing with this stuff, okay? But there isn't much there. His unit is portable. It's come in, he has everything on it that he has because he's licensed by the state to handle what he has. To have what he does, because he vendors out. They all are in the state of Hampshire, so. This should be pretty cut and dry. The biggest thing you're gonna need there is your toilets.
yes, sir.
For little ones and big ones,
Yep.
okay?
So we really don't see, there's not,
There's really
the
nothing.
impact in terms of, but I'm asking about the traffic, the impact in the traffic. I mean, you're gonna have food now and the Christmas trees. That's not gonna be impacted, it's gonna stay pretty much, you think it's gonna pretty much
I
stay
think it's
the
gonna stay
same?
the same because it makes sense, because they had stuff there before the sale.
And yeah,
Mhm.
as they said, I would assume that people wouldn't be coming here and fighting the Christmas tree traffic to get barbecue.
Oh, yeah, they were.
Correct.
It's good barbecue.
My food's good. I don't know if it's that
When-
good.
Well, they
when
would
my
go-
You just
kids
drive to
come home from
Nashville.
college-
They could go to,
When
they
my
could go to
kids
your-
come home from college and find out they don't have to drive to Nashua to Willie Jewell's.
Oh, yeah.
God, they're gonna be like, can I buy a Christmas tree, Mom?
It's gonna be the best Christmas present ever.
Yeah.
They might be an
They come
exception.
home from college, they
I
wanna
got
work
3 of
there.
them and they're coming.
Yeah.
yeah, because yeah,
If
if
they come home,
there's,
they can work
Got
part-time
enough room
there.
for 6 Christmas trees?
Oh, possible.
Just to be sure, further to Mr. O'Connell's comment, I just want to make sure that any of these restrictions or the framework here for our request is these are applicable to the barbecue request and not going to adjust any of the pre-existing
Existing uses.
uses for the Christmas tree. So I don't want
No.
to add any restrictions to the.
Just a BB.
Yeah, it's just an amenity for the customers to have something nice to eat and.
yeah, we're going to be probably amending the conditions to the prior approval, which specifically addresses the barbecue.
Pretty cut
But
and dry.
we are going to have to clarify the car limit. We could say that, maybe say this does not include those attending for Christmas trees.
That's all you have to say.
Right. Great. Thank you very much.
The other thing, I just wouldn't say
I
barbecue,
wouldn't
just say
barbecue,
vendor.
Yeah, because vendor,
Cooking
yeah.
vendor.
Because otherwise you're gonna have to come back if you decide to,
Yeah, if you're gonna cook Italian food, no, we
Yeah.
can't cook that,
yeah.
okay? You know, I'm just looking at the food, the vendors that come in. Many types, and they do the same thing that you're doing. Other people do different types of things. But
from
it's
a-
the same idea,
But from a planning perspective, though,
Yeah.
it should be vendor singular.
correct?
Yes.
One vendor.
So if you want more, you're gonna have to come back.
I'm sorry, I put S on the end of that one, I apologize.
Jay, do you have anything to add?
No, I do not.
Reviewing
It's
this
pretty clear.
application? Okay. Anybody have anything else?
The original conditions of approval said flaggers if necessary to direct traffic in and out of Route 3A. What triggers that if necessary?
I think the sentiment last time was that the police would decide, like, they were kind of patrolling last season, I think, with the Christmas
Yep.
trees, and they said, like, you need to have a flagger, so they were there, and then had flaggers come, I think, a few of the weekends they mentioned last
That
year.
is correct. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. So
Weekends,
we last year and this year as well, we paid for a police detail, and so this year we've booked the police detail again.
I know, because the board paid the bill last year. No, it's part of the game, part of what we have to go through. Selectmen. Bad guys.
So, would this be two conditions amended? One would be to allow the operation at the time we discussed, and then would it be a second item to clarify that the car limit does not include cars attending primarily for other uses?
Yes.
Is that a good way to word that?
That's a good way to word it, yes.
Any other conditions that we would like to amend?
There isn't any really. You drive in, go in, cut a tree, get a bite to eat, and get the hell out.
I think we had one portable restroom per 50 people. Is that still gonna be
Got
sufficient?
ADA,
I have 3 restrooms there now.
men's, women's, and ADA.
Yes.
That's the health part of me. Sorry to say this.
All right, anybody have anything else? At this time, I will open it up to public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on this amendment to this site plan? And see nobody in the
Here.
gallery. I guess we will not have public comment, so we'll close public comment. I'll bring it back to the board. What is the will of the board? What would you like to do?
Okay, I'm ready to make a motion if there's nothing else.
Wish to make a motion, you may do so.
So I'll make a motion to amend the decision noticed on July 2nd, 2024 for the barbecue at 21 Charles Bancroft Highway to amend hours of operation to include the second week of November to December 24th with hours 9:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 days per week, specifically during that time frame, and to clarify that the car limit does not include cars attending primarily for other uses.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, for discussion purposes, did you have a question?
The one caveat to that was the
The vendor.
use of the term barbecue. Did you want to call it vendor?
I say vendor.
The application was called barbecue. Do we,
Yes. But if you're amending it,
so we want to amend it to change the name, change the application, or
Hey,
where?
yeah, because while I
Food
see
vendor,
barbecues
if
in
you
his
just go with
feature,
food
you never
vendor.
know.
Yeah,
No,
food vendor.
Sorry.
A food vendor, if you just say food vendor, you're
So,
fine.
where on the original plan does it specify exactly
Doesn't.
what?
I don't think it does. I think the application was Knoll Tree Farm.
Mm-hmm.
They did say it was barbecue, but
I think it might just be the way it was labeled on the agenda.
it was
The-
labeled that way, but
It is what
yeah.
it's labeled.
I
So-
think if we said food vendor, it would be clearer.
Yeah.
So the reason I word it that way is because this is just referencing the original notice of decision.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
If we need to make amendments to the prior thing in addition to what we said, then let me know.
There's nothing to do. If you just change the verbiage from the date into the word, to clarification to a food vendor, then you don't get into barbecue, you may get into something else in the future, or years down the line, if the trees still grow. Okay, because it's all based off trees.
So should we amend the motion to clarify that the application applies to any food vendor?
That's what it means.
Is like that how I should word it?
Yeah, replace the
I don't know if you
With
have to
barbecue.
say any, I would just
I
say
don't-
food vendor instead of
Yeah.
barbecue and just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I agree.
And it's only so that he doesn't have to keep doing this.
Yeah.
what we're working off of is the original notice of decision,
I would
where it does
suggest,
say barbecue.
Barbecue.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah, I would just say here, the previous approval allowed serving a barbecue at Knoll such and such date and such and that. Just say food vendor and say all in all, the same way. It's just getting word, the barbecue, is just food vendor, and everything should apply.
Is that a motion? 'Cause I haven't
Make a
seconded
motion.
it.
So, okay, so that we're not confusing. So we did have a motion, and we had a second to the motion. We just had a discussion. Are we looking to amend the motion now?
So
It's verbiage.
I'll amend the motion to clarify that the application applies to any food vending.
You see, allow.
Food vendor, singular.
Vendors.
Singular.
Yep.
yeah.
Singular, one.
All references to barbecue apply to any food vendor.
That's a good way the other way too. You just get the word, allow food vendors at Knowles Treatment Farm for such and such a date, such and such. That's it. Very simple. Because you've got serving barbecue. A food vendor is always gonna serve.
So allow food
That's all.
vendor.
That's it. Get rid of the word serving.
So I'll rewrite that amendment.
Okay.
So I'll amend my motion to clarify that the application allows a food vendor.
Okay.
I would second that amendment to the motion.
All right, so I have an amendment to the motion. I have a second by Mr. Blanchett. Any further discussion?
Could we just hear like the complete motion one more time before we vote on it?
So
All
Read that
together.
sentence.
so
Just read the
It's a
sentence.
test.
So this was an amendment to the application for Litchfield Tax Map 1, Lot 23, Knowles Tree Farm, to amend it to allow extended operation from the second week of November to December 24th with different hours of 9:30 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days per week, and to clarify that the car limit does not include cars attending primarily for other uses, and it clarifies that the references to barbecue include a food vendor.
Okay. That's motion, for amended motion. Do I have a second to the amended motion?
I'll second that.
Second, Travis. Any further discussion? Okay. We'll take a vote. All those in favor of the motion, as was stated by Mr. O'Connell, for the amendment to the site plan for tax map 1, lot 23, Charles Bancroft Highway, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those abstaining? All right, the motion passes 7-0-0. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Right.
Really appreciate it. It's gonna be a great season.
Very good. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Take care, guys. Enjoy the trees.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, we definitely took the time to make sure the applicant wouldn't have to come back for small technical details.
You're
He's
done.
got a business to run.
Have a good night.
You're done.
All right, the next item on the agenda for this evening is our planning board work session, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mankara.
All right, so we had 3 items. I don't know if there's a particular order anybody wants to take them in. So we were planning to talk about amendments to the stormwater regulation side, with the possibility of deciding whether or not to send that to public hearing. And then we had 3 zoning amendments that we have discussed so far that were on the agenda. One was the allowing housing as part of a mixed-use development in the northern commercial zone, a very kind of really housekeeping, changing the definition of a butter to be consistent with the new state definition. And then there's also a suggestion from the building department that we amend the ordinance to define a 2-family as 2 attached units with the firewall. So those are the 3 that we have. Doesn't mean that we're limited to those. Right now, we are still at a pretty good place. Typically, we will hold our first public hearing on zoning amendments the first meeting in January. That still leaves us a window to hold a second public hearing if necessary, or if we wish, in January at the second meeting, without holding special meetings. That's usually the goal. We usually do plan on 2 public hearings because it's safer to do that. So this is not, tonight you could vote to send any zoning amendment to public hearing if you wish. You don't have to. We still have a couple more bites at the apple in December. So, but if you're ready, there's no reason not to. With the stormwater regulations, those are not zoning amendments. Those will not go to town meeting. So there is no clock ticking. There's no timeline. But if we're ready, what the heck, we might as well. So I don't know if there's one in particular. If we want to start with stormwater or zoning, or what's the pleasure of the board?
Yeah, we definitely spent some time on the stormwater last time, so that's fresh in my head.
All right, so let's start with stormwater. Hopefully everybody has had a chance to review it. Last time, I don't know if I necessarily, although I'm happy to, I don't know if I need to go through it in the detail that I did last time. I kind of went page by page. But I think the sense was that, everybody just got it, and so you wanted a chance to digest it. I do have an extra paper copy if anybody's not looking at.
Old school, gray hair.
So maybe what I could do is just give the overview, and then Kim did give me some comments from the town's consultant, MS4 consultant, so I'll run through those as well. But basically, there were kind of 3 objectives in this amendment. One was to ease, I guess, provide some relief on the post-construction reporting requirements, because those did seem as though those were onerous for, in particular, small projects. Because we do understand that these MS4 requirements are going to, I really hate these pop-ups, go away, go away, go away, I will not upgrade. Okay. We understand that these apply to any project that's disturbing an acre or more, and that can mean a relatively small project, so the requirement of hiring a professional, an engineer, could be onerous. Another goal was, and this is kind of a comment we've heard directly and indirectly from some of the people who took the time to participate in the public hearing process originally, as well as town staff. We had this kind of dual, just backing up, the MS4 requirements apply to anything that's disturbing an acre or more. We also had requirements that you had to meet our existing stormwater requirements if you're disturbing more than 15,000 square feet, if you're proposing a subdivision or site plan. So there were kind of these dual requirements. So the suggestion was eliminate the 15,000, just go with the federal requirement. So that's one of the changes you see through here. And then another change was eliminating redundancies. There is some redundant language in the text. There were also some language in the text that referenced requirements that we address elsewhere in our regulations. So, for example, there's a section in here that talked about fees and the ability of the board to impose fees. We already have a freestanding section on fees. There's no reason to duplicate that here. And also kind of a section talking about authority and the power of the board to enforce. Again, that's all addressed by statute and in our regulations elsewhere, so we want to eliminate that language as well. One of the reasons to do that is the fewer places you say the same thing, the fewer inconsistencies that can arise when they get amended over here or over there. So that, in essence, were the changes. And in the copy that you see, you can see all the language is shown in strikeout if it's being removed, in bright red, or it is shown in bold and italics if it is inserted. So it should be all pretty clear what's being changed. And I'm sure some people have questions and comments, but if I may, I'll just, there are 3 comments that Kim provided us from the consulting engineer. So the first one is on page 6. I would classify these as rather minor comments. So on 3.4, 1G, he suggests that the word should be changed to shall. So rather than should be provided, he says it should be shall be provided. I think that's pretty simple. On page 15, and as I go along, 3.13, 1D1, he says ownership towards the bottom of the page, right? I gotta understand
Or
changes.
assigned to financial responsibility.
Oh, he wants to retain the word ownership, so
Right.
so it should continue to say, I'll read the whole sentence. The owner of the stormwater management system must notify the planning board of changes to ownership or assignment of financial responsibility. So he wants to retain the word ownership, again, fine. And then page 17, section 3.14.3. Second paragraph, and his comment is, the third line, the word permittee should be replaced with applicant, and he's correct.
Yep.
I made that change elsewhere, so for consistency, change it here. Again, easily done. Obviously, there are no there are no engineering-related comments or MS4-related comments that he's suggesting. So, that would suggest that it's compliant with MS4 regulations.
I have one question,
Yes.
only on the definition on, I'm gonna say, it's 1-2-3, certificate of completion.
Yes.
Okay, the permitting authority, which is the town, okay? And now you got the planning board. Should that be the engineer or the building inspector or the authority like that to verify that, get it and submit it to you?
So in this
Because
case,
during the inspection process, the inspector should be following up on all these things.
yes.
Okay, and he will not, because he's the enforcing authority.
He's the,
Unless you get into roads,
so under this kind of scheme,
but the site plan is where it gets a little odd.
so practically what it's going to be is the board's agent. The engineer is the board's agent. The board's agent is going to say, yes, indeed, everything was done correctly. And then the board issues the certificate of completion.
Not the certificate, that's good, like if the road, how about if it is a site plan for commercial use or like that, how the building inspector will, if it's a site plan, they done what they're supposed to do, it's all inspected. Like we used to inspect all the site plan, our town engineer didn't do it here at the time. He just did
Right.
roads and stuff like that. I'm used to doing site plans when I did it, to make sure it complied to the plan, and if I had any questions, I would bring in the town engineer.
Right.
That's what should be done here, I hope.
So here, the certificate of completion under these regulations only applies to the stormwater management system.
Which is designed for the roads, and that's about it.
Right, so it's not,
Okay,
it doesn't apply to the building or
Or the site,
anything
and when it's
else.
on, okay, so,
Right.
good, I wanna make that clear.
But under these regulations, it's it could be the consulting engineer, it could be another town
Correct.
official who's
Yeah.
authorized also.
Yeah.
As worded, does that mean the planning board or its designee, or just the planning board?
It's the planning board who's gonna issue the certificate of completion. It's,
The final acceptance of the road.
right, it's going to almost certainly be a letter from the engineer
Road's
or a
complete.
memo saying, yes, indeed, it's completed and it's,
That's-
built according to plan.
And that is a common practice in all roads in every town that I've worked in here too. Once, if the road work is done, we're still building homes, okay, during the process, because we got a bond on the road. You can do that, okay, for roads, okay?
Right.
You just can't issue a certificate of occupancy unless that road is done in front of said portion or the safety is in place.
Right, and what's gonna be key about that is that having
Phases.
that report or letter
Yep.
from the engineer, and then the certificate of completion from the planning board is now what's gonna go into Kim's file.
Yep.
So that when she's gotta do her annual reporting, she can demonstrate,
Right.
yes, indeed, it was done correctly, here's a letter from the engineer, the planning board approved it.
In the past, I used to do it, and give it back to them, we didn't have any, the outside store.
Right, right.
I'm from the old school. And you were young when you studied.
I know.
My name's on the building. You,
But you digress.
no one liked it. Okay?
Does anybody have any questions,
Anything else?
comments?
I bet this the other day, I saw it, and I thought it was very good to give it back to you.
Thank you.
But I wanted to have it, but I don't know the sections.
You can keep it. if
Does
you'd like.
anybody have any questions for Jay regarding the
It doesn't come in Braille yet.
stormwater?
Not yet.
So, Kim Kleiner had like one comment on this, basically that she wanted to make sure there was a process to make sure that like all the information she needed got to her, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And would any of that belong in the regulations?
I think what the regulations do is kind of spell out the whole kind of permitting process, the
Acceptance.
regulatory process. I think what Kim is talking about is the internal town hall process of kind of, the planning board can issue the certificate of completion, but then where does it get filed?
Yep.
Internally, I think is probably a little beyond.
There is a
Our
road.
scope.
Yeah, there is, when it comes to that stuff, guys, there is a road file. Every time they build a road, we have a road file, the plans and all the inspections, the approvals and everything, all that. And there's a final letter at the end, acceptance of said road meeting the compliance from the engineer. We in turn bring it back to where, because there's a bond, 99%, and it has to be released. Okay, so the escrow, whatever that's gonna be, the planning board approves that, because it's all been, meets the criteria, that's what it says right from the beginning.
Right.
So, pretty well all set.
I mean, what I would say probably outside of these regulations, there probably needs to be an internal process
Well,
of
there is one
Specifically
now.
with the
right,
stormwater.
how this, what the information flow is within the building and where, who owns, these documents, who has responsibility for them. My
That's how-
guess is it's Kim, needs to be the one to get them, and there just needs to be a internal flow of, planning board has now acted.
Yep.
This has to go,
And the road agent as well, because I think
right,
Kim and Kevin
The road
have
agent.
been, Kevin Brown have been,
Right.
working on it, so.
And Lou, our town engineer, will bless it for us town-wise as well.
realistically, Lou's gonna be the one
Lou's gonna do it.
doing
Right.
Yep.
most of this,
He's retired, he loves it.
or his,
Significant other.
Is there any place that we are supposed to define those processes, or is it just something we have to just make sure we do?
I guess
That's an
it's just,
internal
it's,
process.
the planning board can regulate itself. The board really can't adopt regulations that are going to apply to other town staff. So
It's really the,
that's kind of the part where I think
Road
it's gonna be challenging for us to say here how it flows. Certainly, if there is somebody in town hall who, a position in town hall who ought to be the individual responsible, that's something we could incorporate into the regulations. I would hesitate to do that now,
Yeah.
just because I'm not sure who's the most appropriate person, and then that position can change.
Weekly.
So that's just something to think about. Maybe it's just,
But you can do it in a way where it's, you're saying the planning board needs certain things in order to make decisions, right?
Right.
So that whole, I think this came up a couple of meetings ago when we had another ADU issue, but, just checklists,
Right.
Different folks in town just, weighing in and, okay, this has been done, this has been looked at, yep.
Right.
Yeah, there we go. And it comes as a package.
And that we do. We lay out in here, these are all the things that you're required to submit. I'm just not sure, once the board is done and the board issues its certificate of completion,
Where should it
On the road.
what, how do, in other words, to Kim's concern, how does the collective we make sure that she gets that information?
Like, would it make sense for the Board of Selectmen to regulate us in that way, or?
Correct.
Well, the Board of Selectmen doesn't regulate the board.
No, they don't
Planning
regulate
board.
this board, but the internal operations of how the work is done, the selectman does to make sure
That's right.
we meet to comply with the approval of the planning board. So I know when I was here, I was doing the road inspections a little bit, because we had trouble with the road agents coming in and going, I've done them. And we finally got that organized. Kevin's doing a great job, okay? He's working with each road agent, not road agent, each contractor on any, and when you approve a site plan, a subdivision, he has to make sure it's built to that plan. Okay, it gets done, it gets all through here. The road agent and our town engineer will verify that.
So one of the things that we could do is we could put in the regulations that a copy of the certificate of approval or of completion will be forwarded to the road agent and to the town administrator. That's absolutely something we could say.
Or would we want
filed
even
with the
more,
town?
or would we want even more generic and would be the designee of the town or designee of the?
We could do that too. But someone would still have to, in fact, make that copy and get it to those individuals. And that's the part where, unless there's a planning board member who's willing to make the copy and physically deliver it to the town administrator and to the road agent, you would have to rely on some sort of internal process
The internal process.
and assume that it happens, right?
Jay, the internal process that I remember having here, I don't think it's changed. If it's a road, which we've done a lot of those, or if it's a large site plan like the multifamily locations, okay?
Right.
Where we got drainage considerations, that's part of our town engineer will follow through on that. And while the road agent doesn't get involved as much as the town engineer, because it's a private site. I used the town engineer to handle the drainage, or myself, my background's in it, okay? To go out there and make sure it meets the approval, is in compliance of the plan. That's the building inspector's job too, because that's the code enforcement, or you issue the building plan for the building, but you issue it for the whole site in a case like this. He has to make sure that the site is being done according to plan as well. Now, if he needs help on that, he'll bring in the town engineer to help him. I've done that when it came to drainage in some cases, but that's how it's done. This building inspector now, we're working on him to get that done. He seemed to be versed in some of it, which is nice. Okay, I've had some conversations with him, and he's catching on. It takes a while, I'll be honest with him. Okay, and the best thing we got here in this town is Lou, to take care of like Continental's multifamily projects. He's had 2 in town already. I did the first one, which is minimal, just a site plan, that's all it is, that's all it has to be built, it's on a plan, gotta build it. Same thing with the one you're dealing with now behind the lobster boat.
Yeah.
Okay, they're very basic, they are simple. Just 2 big houses in the middle of nowhere, that's basically it. I sound a little rash on this because I've done it for so long. You know. And Jay knows it.
So if we were to add something in, it would have to be like where it says certificate of completion on 3.15, between that and enforcement.
And that will come, you already got it, you got it, a certificate of completion, which is a letter from the town engineer on roads to say that it's been completed as designed. Or as the changes were needed to be found during the process regarding some minor stuff like what.
So I'm thinking that, in So the permit procedures and requirements are, start on page 9. And this kind of runs through the application itself, and then it has this long list of different different things that you've got to submit.
Yep.
And then it goes on, if you go down to, it's the now crossed out 310.6, public hearings, so before approval, there's a public hearing, appeals, et cetera. What I would suggest is that we might add another section 3.10.10, where we simply say, that a copy of the approval is forwarded to the town administrator, road agent, or other responsible party designated by the Board of Selectmen, or
Correct.
something like that.
Yeah,
So that we can at least make it clear that that's part of the process. The approval goes there. And then we'll do the same thing with the certificate of completion. As defined under 1.2.3, we'll just put the note there that it would be also forwarded.
And for clarification that the certificate of occupancy, like for a site plan or something like that, I can't issue it till it meets those compliance.
Right.
Okay?
And
Going back.
I take it back, it wouldn't be where the definitions are, it would be page 17. We have certificate of completion.
Right.
And we describe that process, and this is kind of where, on the top of page 18, we say that the, planning board will issue a letter certifying it. So again, that's where we would say, and a copy of it is provided to the town administrator, road agent, or other designee, of the Board of Selectmen, or other individual designated by the Board of Selectmen. So I could add those in both of those cases.
Yes, I think
And then
that
that
would make
becomes
sense.
clear.
And then we know where it goes, and
Right. And these are all, of course, this is all public because it's done at a public hearing. So all those documents would be public as well.
I think that makes sense.
So I guess with this amendment, the amendments from the consultant and your proposed changes,
Yes.
I think it's ready for a public hearing.
I would agree. I think a lot of work has been gone into this, and I think this is definitely very well done. And thank you, Jay, for all your work. And I would agree. I think it should go.
Very nice job.
Do you want to send it to a date certain? Set that hearing?
Sure.
And I think our next.
With those changes that we
With those
talked about.
changes, our next opportunity would be December 3rd if we want to do it that soon, December 17th if we don't.
Too close to Christmas, I'm in a bad mood then.
Well, we got to make do. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm just kidding.
We know who's
I'm
naughty or
sorry
nice.
for my-
We
I'm
know.
sorry for my laughter and humor, I apologize.
So, and I would say, so long as Joan can post it on Friday.
Oh, good luck.
Okay. So December 13th?
December 3rd, if she can
Third.
post it on Friday. The other option is the 17th, if we have any reason. I don't know if Joan is not in the office or just not here for another reason.
I don't know.
That's my hesitation.
We could
If we want
follow
to
up
be
with
sure, we
that
could just say
tomorrow.
the 17th.
Why don't we do the 17th, just to be safe? And,
On the 17th, we're probably more likely to have potential public hearing for some other regulations.
That's a good point.
And would that be a good or a bad thing to have them on the same day? Because
Good.
we would
Be
most likely have attendance from like some land use lawyers
You'll
hired
get both
by
of them here.
people in town.
I suspect that some of the most likely interested parties would be interested in both. So it might be more efficient for their sake to do it on the same day.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure some will come in and say hi.
And there are no significant applications I'm aware of in the wings, so I don't think we would run into nothing. There have been no new applications that I have seen, so we won't run into a conflict with having to post something.
does
that
that
make sense?
sound good to everybody else? We agree? Okay.
We need a motion.
All right, well, we need a motion to to a time and date certain. Anyone make a motion?
I'll make a motion to send the amended stormwater management regulations to a public hearing scheduled for December 17th of this year.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second, so I have a motion by Travis, second by Jared. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstain. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Perfect.
So the next one I've got is the changes that were proposed to the Northern Commercial District. And what this would be, as noted, I think we've noted previously, this is something that came up, I think, 3-4 years ago. And it didn't move forward, but we did spend a fair amount of time on it, and I think we talked about it here at our last meeting. Essentially, what this would do is it would amend section 803 of the zoning ordinance, Northern Commercial Zone, to add an allowance for mixed, what we're calling mixed-use village development as a conditional use. And the general requirements would be that it has to be, obviously the concept is it's mixed use, and it should be conceptually emulating the kind of traditional New England village design. That's the concept. Because this is zoning and we didn't want to go too far into detail, there's not a lot of detailed design. I think the idea would be that there would be parallel an amendment. Again, doesn't have to follow the same time frame. It's our regulations, but we would also be looking to our regulations to probably provide some more specificity around design issues. But generally, the concept is the parcel has to be at least 5 acres in area. The density would be the same as the density in the mixed use, in the multifamily overlay, which is 2.5 units per acre. It allows buildings, in this case, significantly, it doesn't limit it to multifamily. It could be single family, it could be duplexes, could be up to a 6-unit building, some combination thereof. The other key is that, some non-residential component, commercial component is required. So you couldn't just do multifamily. And the way this is structured is it has to be a minimum of 100 square feet of commercial space per residential unit. And, I'm sorry.
What are you saying there?
Saying that if you want to take advantage of the mixed-use overlay, it has to be mixed use. It
So
can't-
you can build a house with a commercial use in it,
Yes.
and it has to be a minimum, no less than 100 square feet. So it could be an office.
Per residential unit.
It could be an office, right.
Well, yeah, but it's a minimum of 5 acres, so
I-
realistically,
Yeah,
this
but
isn't
your
one
density-
house.
Yeah, but you're referring, you allow a higher density, you're
That's
doing
right.
that. So you could have 5 units out there,
That's right.
or eight units, but you need 100 square feet, let's say a strip mall with some residential in the back, or something like that.
It could be.
Okay.
I mean, I think design-wise, that's probably not what we're hoping to see, but,
No,
and
but
that,
I can see
again,
it happening, that's what I'm saying.
but the idea would be there would be a commercial piece, and so one of the things, so it's a minimum of 5 acres. Realistically, you're not gonna see, something coming in with, say, fewer than 12 units. And that would be on the small side. And so that's a pretty small 1,200 square foot
And you want-
commercial building. That's probably a small freestanding, single use in that scenario.
In relation to that, it also, you can't do it with the density for subsurface, because you need so much land for subsurface.
You do. But that's kind of why this uses the same density requirement that we already have in the multifamily overlay. We've seen that developed. We know you can develop at that density. So yeah, of course you'll have to meet those requirements. It does list in here the kinds of commercial uses generally that we're talking about, and it does not include things like gas stations, automobile service and repair. It's not aimed at the auto-oriented uses. So that's kind of a concept. And there's a minimum open space requirement, pretty small, but it's a minimum of 20%. Another key criterion is that it does require that a fiscal impact study is provided that shows a net, positive fiscal impact. That was part of the concern that when we originally drafted this, there was a concern. Well, I should say that's a lot of how this came about was the initial proposal that was brought to the board was allow multifamily in the northern commercial zone, period. The concern is that we would be giving up tax base, that if we do that, basically all the vacant developable land is going to become
Housing.
family housing, and we won't have any commercial.
No, and there's no money to the town on that.
Right. So that's why this mixed-use concept came forward. Okay, we'll allow more opportunities for residential, but we need to have a commercial component, and it needs to have a net positive impact. We don't want to drain on resources for the town. And I will say that concept, we did look at Merrimack, which has that same requirement in what they call their planned residential development.
Yep.
And there have been challenges, admittedly, with that in recent years. There have been a number of them. So if you go up and down DW Highway in Merrimack, you might not even realize that these are mixed use, because on the design side, they didn't do what we were just talking about, and they did wind up, most commonly it is a strip mall in front. So if you see near the Nashua town line, there is the Harris Pond Shopping Center that really never took off, and there are the Harris Pond condominiums behind it.
Right.
They're not integrated, but they're there. You go a little bit further up the road, there's like a primary care, I forget which one it is, it might be St. Joe's primary, whatever. It's kind of out there by the road. That's also was part of the condominium development that went behind it. So lately, I will say, because retail has been challenging, it has been harder. And there have been projects in Merrimack that have come to the board and said, give us relief from this requirement. We can't find a tenant. And some of them were office buildings that did that. It was a small office, and they cannot find an office tenant. And the board has granted those because they want to see something, I guess I would say. So I don't want to say it's without challenges. We know that from a market perspective, there's a limited array of commercial uses. Part of the hope was if you develop housing alongside, you also create demand. But that is a reality that we could face.
Yeah, this is just another option that developers have when they do this. It's not restricting them compared to our existing regulations. So I think this is a net positive.
That's a very good point. It's an option. It's not mandatory. You take advantage of it if you wish to take advantage of it. I don't have it up, and I could bring it up if we want to see it, but we also had a presentation back then. I think we looked at it at a prior workshop that really showed the number of parcels. There aren't all that many parcels that are 5 acres or more. They're pretty identifiable. They're not pretty identifiable. They're completely identifiable.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Museum.
maybe 10 or 12 parcels that could be developed under this ordinance.
Yeah. And there's one of them, the one that's off of St. Francis Way, is actually listed for sale right now, which is very relevant to this amendment.
Yeah, it would be very relevant to this, and that's a pretty good sized one where you could accomplish something.
Yeah, you could easily fit a village.
You can do 2 things back there, you just gotta stay out of a little buffer area in there.
Right.
Top of the hill, it's a little damp, cause I plowed it for the last 10 years when I was younger over there, cause I plant corn. I'm sorry, I'm getting old. I wanna bring up one thing on the south end of town regarding that use in there with you're talking about the northern, but
Northern,
you
yeah.
mentioned the Merrimack side. That, the circumventual highway is crossing the southern part of the town. Where the Harris thing is, okay? It's right in that area, that's why the commercial didn't go. because of the highway. The residential was put in prior to them taking the land for the highway on that side. So that's what was happening in there, and some of those buildings that they built, they may have to come down if the state's involved with that. This is many years ago we talked about this, and I remember, because that really got things going. Because look what we got now, state owns a piece of land that we can't do anything with. We
Yeah.
don't really get anything out of it, no taxes, no nothing.
I
Surprise.
are there any findings on opportunities to connect to other municipal sewer? Because I can imagine the only way that would be feasible is if a developer wanted to foot the bill to gain a density bonus.
You got, for the north of the town, you got Manchester that comes into the line, goes up Pine Street a little bit, up to the end, because they got stuff in the back in Manchester at the end of Pine Street. But anything else, it ends just about where the power line is. It comes down and then it goes up around the corner to get to that area up in there.
Yeah, it would be tough. There's been talk about
Yeah.
doing a feasibility study for the possibility of extending sewer from Manchester. That never really got, right, it never really got there, but that's been talked about. There was also talk at one point about, gee, could you sink a sewer line under the river from Merrimack? That's never gotten anywhere either.
Yeah, interestingly, it's right across, like Merrimack's sewage plant is literally right across from the southern commercial district.
Yep, it's right over there, I know where it is. You can smell it
Right
when you
across from
drive
what
by.
we used to call Budview.
Yeah, that's the best way of saying it.
I got a question on this. So, where in here do we have the ability to say what we don't want? I mean, I know it says here, not including
gas
gas stations, automobile service, but I'm not talking about things and uses. I'm talking about design, right? So, I'm just envisioning a developer comes in and it's got these great ideas and he follows this to the letter and says, yep, check, got it, yep, density, 100 square feet per residential unit, yep, I got it all. And we look at it and we're like, ew, we don't want that there. I'm trying to anticipate anything that I might be, ew, I don't want to see that there. And in thinking of those kinds of things, you started down this road about, that got me thinking about the towns, that the way they had guided the development, for lack of a better term, where they put anything up near the street had to be more commercial, and then the residential would be behind. I mean, I know there's a lot of communities like that that are very strict. Bedford is very strict. And I've found developers find loopholes in order to squeeze in what they want. And that's fine if it's palatable and a solution that you like, but if it's not, it's kind of hard to say no to something when they followed all of the things you said you were going to allow. So I guess I'm looking to you, Jay, to kind of guide us on, is there anything we should think about, and maybe in the wording in here, and maybe just sort of over the next few weeks think about how to counsel and write this in a way that doesn't bring forth those projects that we go, ooh, no, we don't want that. I
Right.
can't even envision that as I drive down,
Well,
from
if you look at
Manchester.
803, and I'm gonna say 6, the key natural and historic site features including the building's historical value, stone walls, agricultural fields, trees, such and such. You're looking to maintain your development with that intent.
But what if a site doesn't have those things? You know
Then
what
you
I
got
mean?
plain land, basically, if you get to the north of the town on, I'm gonna say that there's one piece just north of Temple, and then it's owned by a person in Nashua. been there for a while, and that's the next development area that I see gonna happen. And we got mixed use in there. It's all residential, all the way from there to the,
But as long as it's based on a traditional New England mixed-use village design,
yeah. Your road work in there is gonna be difficult for turns and stuff, because of the hill itself.
I could definitely think about, it's kind of a balance between,
I know.
because it's zoning, modifying it means going to the zoning board for a variance versus kind of working through regulations, which is a little bit of a challenge. You kind of really do want some regulations specific to it separate, but there is language that we could put in here to make it stronger. For example, that at least where possible, I think you should have central open space like a village green, that kind of a concept. That the non-residential development should be integrated into the development. But again, those are fuzzy-ish terms. One of the things, Jerry, that you talked about was, should there be a maximum setback for buildings from, the street or sidewalk? That's something we could put in.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
I'm almost thinking I would challenge all of us to, as we drive through those sections of town, and just think of all the things we see different places and say, okay, well, what if that were there? Do would I want that there? Or, and just kind of start to think about that, because I worry that what we envision as, aesthetically pleasing driving through town might not be,
Yeah, like
might get something we don't really want.
there aren't many design standards or any design standards for the commercial zoning right now. So if we were to implement this without those design standards, it wouldn't be any worse than what we have now. But I do share your concern that if we can try to make sure the regulation or the ordinances empowers the regulations to allow us to set certain design standards, that would be beneficial.
But we can
Yeah,
beef this up
I'd like
a
to
little
think
bit
about a little
too.
bit more.
Yeah.
If you look at, I'm gonna say 2.5 or 2.4, okay, your commercial uses, including the retail, office, restaurant, and personal, and what's a personal service, almost said like that.
That's
Hair
thing.
salon.
Exactly.
Nail salon.
Exactly.
Okay,
Barber shop.
oh, you're talking about, okay.
Yeah, there you
Caught-
go.
That caught me off guard. Okay, and professional service and other non-residential use developed in harmony with the residential use within the MUVD. Okay, MUV, but not including gas stations and stuff like that.
Right.
You've already said that you're trying to make it fit in with that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. He just said it. A personal service is a massage parlor. Do you want to, and that might be totally in harmony with someone who lives in that area, but for the rest of the people, that might be like, oh, I don't know.
Well, your personal services right there. That's it. A massage parlor is a service.
That's what I'm saying, it would be allowed
Right,
in that
it's like
instance.
massage.
So, and it would be difficult for us to contest.
I don't see how you
I'm
would.
just, I'm just playing devil.
What about hair salons?
I just
my
would
God?
challenge you to think about some of these things a little bit more, because I know I need to. I
Well,
need to think about the language that
Yeah.
would go in there. So it's not restrictive necessarily, but it's not like, hey, bring it all here.
what's the definition of what you're trying to say?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I think we need to think about it.
Well, I think we've got some time, and what I can do is kind of send out to everybody again the kind of guidelines that we had looked about, some of the examples, and I think people could drive around, think about it. Our drop dead date, if we want to do this year, is at the meeting on the 17th, would be our last opportunity to send it to public hearing. So we have 2 more meetings after this to talk about it. So we don't have to make a decision today. We can think about it.
Who's sending out that information for us to see, because you're more familiar with this happening in, like, the cities and stuff like that?
Well, what I was gonna do is, we've already got, like, what I've got up on the screen there are what we had looked at in the past, so I'll send that out to everybody, cause it could trigger,
Yeah.
if I want it to look like that, what would a regular, and I'll do the same thing, I'll go through that exercise too.
Okay.
And then what I'll also do is just recirculate the presentation that was done then, which highlights the parcels.
That'd be helpful, yeah.
Yeah, so at least you can get the visual of, these are the vacant developable parcels. Keeping in mind that there are also some developed parcels that could be redeveloped one day.
Yep.
Something that is a golf course today, as an example, might not always be, so there could be more potential beyond it ultimately.
The road gets paved every day when they drive in and out.
So, we've got a little time.
So this will, all the commercial uses allowed are basically all the ones in the northern commercial district, minus the ones that we say don't fit in, right?
Yes, and we can be more specific, you know, if we'd like to be.
Yeah,
That was just a kind of a such as, if we wanted to say, these are what's permitted, we could do that.
Yeah, I think we should also like explicitly mention that like contractor services don't belong in the village. They can go somewhere else, it's permitted, but just
That's
not in the
fair.
village.
That's fair.
What do you mean by that, contracted services?
That's like what we've had recently, in the recent meetings to the planning board for the northern commercial district.
HVAC.
HVAC, electric,
You don't wanna see
especially
something
like
that?
lawn services. Like, it doesn't belong next to residential, if it can be avoided.
Most of those services, I'm gonna say, are very quiet. Okay, they're not very big.
But they don't benefit the residential use in any way.
If it's done right, they can. That's what I'm saying.
What
That's
example?
how, I've seen it work both ways in other towns, where we have residential there, and we do have an HVAC or mall. Okay, we got more residential right next to it, people do like it. I know what you're thinking, but if you get a plumber, electricians, like, you take Jolt Electric, that's very quiet. You know, it fits in.
Okay, I guess we should explicitly mention contractor services that require external storage, maybe?
You will have extra storage, but you can fence it in and hide it too. I agree, but most of them don't really have it. Your HVACs, your electricians and stuff like that, or all the plumbers, don't have that type of, they need it to be outside, they can't, because most of that stuff's gonna be out of the rain. Okay?
The recent ones we've had wanted some level of warehousing.
And that's a storage part of the, that could be a detached, still looking good, like a barn, and still put this stuff in it. I'm just being the devil here, that's all I'm playing, and I've seen it go both ways.
Well, we could certainly, you know, come up with a list of what we
You
think.
got what you got up there, you can do something with a type of
Right.
storage style.
I think a lot of that, you know, these concepts are kind of things that are walkable and might serve directly the residents, I think was part of the thinking. But we can come up with those, what do we think makes sense in this context?
Well, you don't have to drive to get a massage?
That would be the idea.
And do you think we should require potential, if it's a village, do you think it would be reasonable to require sidewalks connecting all uses?
Absolutely.
And
That's
with
part
the-
of the site plan, you can do that. It's up on, you get into Route 3A, you'd be dealing with the DOT. And that is another, we're still dealing with them, even with the gas station that was approved.
This would be,
Dunkin' Donuts that everybody's screaming for.
I'm mainly talking about internal.
Yeah.
Right, you want it
If it's
internally
on a town, if
walkable.
it's on a town type road, you can do that with. In the state road, you have to deal with them.
Right, yeah, we've got a specific requirement now for sidewalks on 3A in the northern commercial zone. But internal, I think you want that, you don't wanna have it where they gotta walk across a parking lot to get to
No,
a
you
coffee
want-
shop. Right, it's gotta be, and we could put some, you're not gonna design, that's always the tricky part, is you don't wanna design it in the zoning ordinance, but you want it.
Well, your
To be-
setbacks are good here, your parking has gotta be set back more in the front, so you've got your area for your walkway. Cause you know, you can do it like that.
Yeah.
And that'll solve it.
So would anything regarding sidewalk or walkability belong in the ordinance, or was it all be in the regulations?
Well, I think you could put, I think that you could put, language, I don't wanna kind of write it off the fly, but I think you could put language in that the uses would be connected by sidewalks.
Pedestrian right-of-ways.
Right, I mean, that I think you could put in there, yeah. That's not designing it, but it is saying those internal connections need to exist.
If you do that, if it's in the public way, we have to maintain them, though. That's a separate issue.
Most of these are gonna be
Internal.
an internal site plan. But yeah, I think you can put it, I think you wanna put in those general types of requirements. So, yeah.
Yeah, and if a developer complains about the connection, the response to them would be, then does the mixed village development work for your development?
Right, and it might not, and that's okay. If you wanna develop it conventionally, you can, it's an option.
They just can't get any of the residential.
Yep.
That's the trade-off is, right, and there's other things you can put in, parking has to be to the side of the rear unless it's on street, so there are some things.
The visual on the
That's,
front is not just a parking lot.
that's usually what you don't want, right?
Yeah, I was watching a video that was released in the last week where it was about development and stuff like that. And one of the interesting things that was pointed out in the video was that when you can't find parking in a city, it's very annoying because you'll have to go around, find a parking garage or something, park there. But what was pointed out was the distance you would often have to walk from that parking garage to the use is often it's often less than the huge parking lots in front of those big buildings like
Yep.
Walmart. It feels normal when you can just park and see, okay, that's where Walmart is, I'll just walk that way.
And when you can see where you've parked from where you are, knowing that your catalytic converter is not being stolen by some homeless person in the city, that's the benefit of being out of the city and parking in a large open area that you can have that visibility.
No offense to Manchester.
I have had that thought though at the Walmart in Amherst, where I'm easily walking a block and a half, easily. So, anyway,
Yeah, that is a huge parking
it's
lot.
a huge parking lot. So I'll pull some of that, I'll pull these examples together, get them out to everybody. We can give it some thought, and I'll take a stab at some more language, and we'll have another shot.
And also for the physical impact, how would that apply in terms of the timeline? Because I can imagine if it, for example, has a public road that has to be built, that will have to be maintained by the town. In the short term, it's beneficial because the town doesn't have to maintain it beyond plowing for the first while, but eventually it will have to be paved, and that will cost the town a lot of money in the longer term, 20, 30 years down the line. What timeline does the physical impact study need to address?
So that's discretionary, but it's always a point in time, and usually it doesn't go that far. Usually it's upon completion, usually. And again, there's discretion there, so the board has discretion to decide. But if it's gonna take, call it 5 years, so it might be year 5, is kind of usually though it's when it's complete and occupied, this is what it's going to consist of, this is the tax revenue that it's going to generate, and they typically will do an analysis that says, this is how many school children will be, that we anticipate will come out of the development, this is what that cost will translate into in terms of Litchfield's costs, and they'll do the same thing for all of the other municipal services. That's typically what they'll do. And then they will typically make an argument that this will be a net positive because the annual cost, of the development will be less than what comes in tax revenue. And then very often during the public hearing process, exactly those kinds of questions are raised. Well, what if, this happens, or, so. And then the counters, you kind of go back and forth. So, and it's also very common for towns to have a third-party reviewer of a physical impact study who has some expertise, who will say, well, the best practice is this. But there are, physical impact studies aren't unique to this, they're required under different circumstances in many communities, so there are some kind of accepted methodologies and standards, and that's kind of what it would wind up being.
Okay.
Got it. What's the next one, butters?
If you're ready to go there, yeah. There's something more to come on this.
Oh, you got more?
On what?
You got more?
And yeah, I
No,
guess,
more to come in that we're gonna be looking at this again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
revisit.
yeah.
yeah. And I guess so far, looking at the existing wording, the best thing that we have that's already in the proposed wording for making sure that it fits in, like with the development, including the concerns you brought up, is the planning board shall determine whether proposed uses, building design, and landscaping is compatible with the mixed commercial, residential, and historic character of the area. That doesn't, of course, address some of the concerns you brought up, but
Right.
it's
But it
hard
is
to
general.
regulate that.
Oops.
It has to be general, you can't be specific, because everything's different. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I just lost it. Wait, here we go. It's coming.
Who's that, Deke? Is that
No,
you?
it's me. It's just me having to sign in again.
Yeah.
Well, there
There
we
you
go.
go.
Phew. Okay. So yeah, there was some specific language, but it could be clearer. I mean, it could be more defined.
Yep.
So I think that's what we'll work on.
Yeah, I think it needs,
Yeah.
fleshing out. And
So we'll bring it back. If it's a pleasure of the board, we'll bring it back at our next meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so
What's next?
the next one I have on my list is the really very straightforward,
Butter
I
one.
did it
You
again.
wanna read mine?
No, if you've got it, that's great. Everybody have it?
I got it.
While I,
A
attempt-
butter definition?
A butter definition, and this is really, really straightforward.
State law, right?
It parallels exactly the state law that was amended and was actually effective July 1, so this is the way we now have to
Do it.
do it. And it is, I'm not going to say it's not awkward, I think it is. But it's what we gotta do.
The awkward people left the other part of the country here.
Yeah, I mean.
Each town has got their own set of rules, those legislators up there decide to fit it all in.
My editorial views are irrelevant,
Correct.
but I thought it was pretty straightforward. It abuts it, or it's across the street or stream.
Right.
To me, that was pretty easy,
Yeah.
but I guess everybody didn't think so, so now we have this projected points
50
within
foot,
50
50
feet, and whatever. But that's what we gotta do. And the last change, which is in bold, reflecting manufactured housing parks, which means you have, now notify every individual tenant. That's actually relevant for us. We have 3 manufactured housing parks in town, so it is what it is, and this is what we have got to do, and so we should do it, and
Now, if they own it, okay, if they own the park, the group, it'd be no different than the condominium requirement.
yes, it would.
How?
Doesn't matter if they're in
Okay,
a
never mind.
manufactured housing park,
Manufactured housing is its own.
Because it says manufactured park. Okay, let's
then
say,
that's what you gotta do.
so if we change the definition of a manufactured park, would be all set.
You know, end of the day, it just means that if you're abutting it, you've
You're gonna pay
got several
more for
more
it.
butters that you're gonna have to notify,
Quite a few.
and that's how it is.
Okay,
So is this a regulation or an ordinance
So,
state law.
that we have to?
well, we do have to do it in 3 places because we define a butter in the zoning ordinance, so we have to change it there. And then, yes, we do need to change it in our subdivision and site plan regulations because we define a butters there as well.
Will the town have to vote on a definition change?
In the zoning ordinance, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then we should probably look into ways of just referencing state ordinances in
Well,
the.
you put this in, but you say that it's a state law now, it's an update. per the abutter law in the state of New Hampshire, which is what they followed before.
So,
Now they put it in here differently, so we had to update it. Welcome to the new change.
so,
To change
yes,
somebody,
that is an option. There's at least, one other town who I work with who said, let's just do that. Let's just change the definition to be as defined in RSA, blah, 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 as may be amended, or as
I'll go with
amended. And that is an option. We could just do that. And-
Yeah, I think,
That's what it
I
would
think that
say.
makes sense for the ordinances and the regulations. We can just do it ourselves and inline.
That's true. We don't, so that is a good point. I'll just amend it to say that, and then that way we don't have to do it again.
Yeah.
Let's do that. You're right, in the regulations, we can do that at any time we
Anyway.
want. And the only value of that is just for people who are not experienced.
Yeah, so they understand.
They can, right. All right, so I'll do that. That's an easy
It puts the
change,
state
and I'll bring
law
that back next time.
Application right to it, so they know how to find it, and it's written in here doing the same thing.
Done. Next, we have the last one. And this is from the building inspector. And.
I'll look
See if I
at
can
it.
Get it just a little bit bigger. So the suggestion here is, that we adopt a definition. So this isn't saying the section number, but I can add that. A duplex is a dwelling unit in a two-family dwelling that is separated from another dwelling unit by wall and/or floor assemblies with a 1-hour fire resistance rating. The requirements for duplexes are 1-hour fire suppression, while townhouse units have a 2-hour requirement. I have no knowledge
There's no
in
fire
these.
suppression required.
I don't know anything about those requirements.
I
I'm
can
just
tell
gonna
you
be.
now, this is what I did for a living for 40 years, okay? And I'm enforcing these same rules in Milford, part-time. The building code dictates it. The NFPA fire code says the same thing. If you got a duplex, you gotta build a 1-hour fire separation wall, which you do all the time, which is 2 walls with 5/8 insulate, insulation for sound, they're separated a little bit so you don't get transmitting sound. But you got 5/8 sheetrock on the living side of that, all the way up to the underside of the roof. Because if one side burns, there's a block, so it doesn't go into the attic of the other side or penetrate the wall. Anything regarding plumbing or anything like that, or electrical, gets a little funky, but the boxes require that, the type of box you use, so it doesn't burn. In the plumbing, you normally can't put that in that wall because you can't get that separation with plastic pipe today, or PEX or anything like that. Your townhouses are different. 3 units or more, you must suppress your building in the state of New Hampshire now. So your duplexes, you don't have to. When you go 3 or more, you
By that you
have
mean sprinklers.
sprinkler suppression. But that's state law,
This isn't a
okay?
suppression.
And that's a separate item all by itself. Because your building code says what it has to say, and the state has got that adopted in there as amended to the state building code. Because we follow the state building code. Trash can got get, okay? Unhealthy people. But all I'm saying is that, when you get into your multifamily row housing, I call it, like Rick's got that project up there on 102, those have fire suppression all the way through. Okay, because each unit have, now you can cut back your fire rating, but they still use a 5/8 still for sound and transmission and stuff like that, another thing.
But is fire suppression the issue here, or is it just separation?
The issue
It's
is,
just separation
I
here.
think the issue is, I could be wrong, that they want to clarify that a two-family dwelling
I'll help you with this one, I'll bring back the code.
has to be attached by a wall with the fire separation,
Building.
because what they're trying to avoid is people saying that a breezeway between 2 units is a duplex.
So I found the definition in our zoning ordinance 200.07. Duplex or two-family residence, two attached dwelling units contained in a single building. So would a breezeway be considered a single building?
Yes, no, it will not. It's a detached, it is a common area to get to the unit 99% of the time. If it's a breezeway, and it's gonna be that tenant has got occupancy of that breezeway, there's still a 1 hour separation wall from that tenant space all the way, to the breezeway, all the way through. And then that wall separates the other one on this side. If there's a breezeway that's gonna be a common breezeway, you got firewalls on both ends to make that a shaft, or a corridor, okay? That you can walk down to get to your units,
Yeah, so the concern I think
but
is.
it's not a breezeway.
So I think the concern is not the technicals like that, it's people trying to use a small connection to count it as a duplex when it's really just kind of two buildings with a tiny connection in between.
Correct. But
So-
it's still a fire separation wall.
Yeah.
Okay, how it's designed, it could have, I've seen them where we have a house and another one, and there's a common area, I'll call it a common area, where they go in and out and go in. There's also a front door, because you get two ways of escape. Okay, or a rear door. So that's how that plays. I'm gonna get the building code out to verify that for the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll get the sections, and I'll also contact the state, you know, the building official who's in charge of the codes, who I trained. He works for the city of Nashville now as the chief inspector.
So,
I'll get the clarification.
so what should we define to
I'll talk to Bill.
address the concerns raised?
And what are Scott's concerns again exactly
It's,
with
I
this?
think,
I'm
it-
speculating that that's the concern.
I think the concern is when people are trying to basically
Joe, say that to
separate
you.
a duplex as much as you
Yeah.
physically can to make it
No, Jody,
so that
you
there,
did
it's not, it's barely a
Don't
duplex
expect
anymore,
it.
it's basically just two
I'll
really
verify
close
that.
single-family
Right.
homes.
Okay,
Okay.
So would that be like a design standard,
that's a
or?
design standard, you're right, but you still gotta maintain your fire separation.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, and I will bring in the building code so you'll understand it, and I'll talk to the building inspector, to make sure he understands it, cause I do it every day, at least 3 times a week, and this is what I have to do. Cause I review plans all the time.
So, but for the purposes of, what we're being asked though is what, to change the definition
All
of
they're
a
trying to
duplex
do is put
in
something,
our
yeah.
law, in our,
And you can't
Zoning
change.
ordinance,
yeah.
yes.
I think what they're trying to say, we had somebody who wanted to put an ADU up, if I recall, or something like that, and they wanted to put a separate walkway like in between them. So it is attached, still. And it has to have the fire separation wall still. Okay, and that's what they're trying to make sure, but it's the construction method that creates the confusion. I will talk to the building inspector this week and find out which plans, what layout, to see what he has, and I'm sure we can get an answer for that. I'll also get the state law and what we run across, and I'll give you some ideas on that, and it'll help him too, because I know he's new at this as well, and I understand that.
Yeah, I will say, I know Hudson,
Yep.
a couple of years ago, changed their code with language that isn't exactly like this, but has this type of language in it, and their aim was to eliminate what they call the dumbbell design, which you'll see if you're going down, 3A into Hudson.
Yep.
On your left-hand side, you'll see them. They are duplexes that are attached by two-car garages, so it looks like a dumbbell. And they design-wise, they wanted to avoid that, and that was the idea, is the walls of the houses have to touch, they can't be connected by two garages.
Yeah,
Well, by law, you can do that, though, as long as you build a fire separation wall and ceiling
Yeah, so it
Because your
sounds,
garage has to
So
have the
is this a
same rating.
building code issue
No.
and/or a design issue?
It's just a
or
design
what?
issue in some
I mean,
towns.
I guess, you know,
In Hudson's case, it was a design
Design
issue.
issue.
It's
It
their
sounds
thinking
like,
with the
yeah.
fire code.
Here, it might be, there might be a different driver, but there, what, because that's what they were getting. And they didn't like,
the design.
they didn't like the way it looked.
sure, sure.
Well, if you look around, you take your multifamilies that we did for years, and you see the garage under all the time. 2 separate garages, side by side. It's a common practice, because there's also a wall from inside that room, because the garage is not it's a single bay garage. So you got the same wall going
Stairs
through.
above, yeah.
When you build a garage attached to a house, you gotta have a firewall between the garage and the house. Same thing. It's just that this case, we got the firewall, we may have a living space above, which is not uncommon, but you have a fire separation wall. A garage in the split, you got the living area above, or a ranch, or whatever, okay? You come in from the side, you've got the same thing. I'll bring in the designs and codes to show you.
And what might be really
I'll send you some pictures.
alternative approach is if there's something that you don't want to see, just say that. Because I will say in the Hudson example, the language, the intent was we don't want dumbbells, but the language didn't say we don't want dumbbells. It kind of did this. And so, yeah, what if you have the 2 garages and you put the fire separation?
You
one
have
up?
to.
Then you,
Yeah.
right, then where are you? So I will say it did go to, somebody did appeal it to the zoning board not that long ago, and the zoning board just granted their appeal, so.
Yeah, because you can do the old style, you got a 2-bay garage, and some people, they didn't put a firewall between them, but they had the firewall in the ceiling, and everything else. No, it's detached, it's an ownership, it's a tenant space, so it has to have that space.
So
I
maybe we,
know Hudson's getting to that one.
right, but maybe what we want to do is just figure out what the goal is.
I'll look into it.
Yeah,
I'll
I
figure out
probably
the
wanna
goals.
figure out
What are we trying
what's the
to-
purpose
Right.
I
of
think,
putting this, yeah.
I
I'll
think
get
it
the
would
stuff
be,
and bring it to you informational, and you can go from there, guys, okay?
I think it would be valuable for you to bring up on the screen, the NRPC website, showing Juniper Court in Litchfield.
Yeah.
It's off of Fallon.
On the GIS?
Yeah,
It's GIS.
Let's see.
Where's Juniper Court, I forgot.
What is
it's
what?
off. It's a little tiny. It's right next to the tennis court and lacrosse field. It's off of Fallon Drive, which is the
Okay. Oh, I remember looking at those.
Oh, I agree, come on.
Yeah, interestingly, they were definitely fairly recently constructed. If I go to Google Maps, I cannot see them built. But if I go to select the theme on the GIS website to Google Satellite, it does show them.
You got a duplex on the right side at the end on Juniper Court.
You have 2 duplexes.
Correct, there's one across the street.
Yeah, one of them is the dumbbell
Yeah.
design, and the other one
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
a more offset one.
Yeah.
There we
There's
are.
fire separations
Yeah, that's
between
the
those
dumbbell
walls.
design.
You can, if you go to theme, themes on the top right, you can
Yeah.
change the base to satellite, which would
Yes.
There's a wall between those, both of them. I inspected it.
Right, that's definitely what Hudson was saying, let's not do this, maybe, this, fine, this, no. But I don't know if
Interestingly-
that's our goal, I don't know if that's the goal of this.
Yeah.
Right.
You got a
Interestingly,
duplex, which is allowed because of the lot size, okay, and they built it to the code at the time, and there's a separation in there. You got garage doors, but there's walls between them.
Yep.
Okay, so so it meets the 1 hour separation. as is required.
Yeah.
That was my comment, because if this is trying to prevent that, it really doesn't.
It doesn't.
The
It
garage
can't.
walls.
It can't do it.
Right, and I don't know, it may be the goal.
It sounds like the goal is more the design standards with
You want,
So we
what-
should find that out,
Mhm.
and then from there we'll know.
so if you put the garages on the far end and you put the houses kissing each other,
Yeah, the interesting thing about the example on the left side that was shown, it's in terms of contact between the halves of the building, it's I think it's even less contact than the dumbbell design.
I think I've got a dumbbell in here somewhere.
the dumbbell has the open garage you're referring to.
And it's a double garage, yeah, here we go.
Yeah, it's a two-stall garage, but there's a firewall in it.
This is what they were hoping to avoid.
What? I like that.
It's that's the dumbbell.
Yeah,
It's
but-
connected by two
Okay, but there's a
garages.
firewall between it. That
Yeah,
means
the
all
firewall
that.
wasn't the issue. The issue was they didn't like this aesthetically, so they were trying to get away from that. That what they wanted
That's
was something more like this, where that's a duplex.
I just said
but
the
it
garage
looks-
is on the far side.
Yeah,
Right, because in this case, it looks like it could fit into a neighborhood of large, single-family homes. That was really the idea, is that design-wise, it integrates better.
Yeah, in terms of the appearance, that solution looks a lot more like a single-family character.
Exactly, that's another one in that same area, that's a little more duplexy looking, but
Yeah.
that was the aesthetic goal was, but again, it was aesthetic, I don't know that that's the goal here.
Yeah, in
It might
terms
be.
of wanting to live there, the dumbbell design looks a lot more appealing. As
That's why they build them.
yeah,
And I agree, they are more appealing, and if you don't like what it looks like, don't buy one.
Well, I guess for next time,
We'll talk about
we
it.
can.
We'll find out.
Get some more information.
Right, we'll get some
Figure
more
out.
information.
I'm good with that. Boy, you give me something to do this week, guys.
And
I
that's
appreciate it.
all
Keep you
we
busy.
have,
Being retired is tough.
that's all we've got.
Okay. Well, I actually, so Ms. Kleiner mentioned this issue of technical review.
Yep.
Is that something that we want to put into the site plan?
It wouldn't be zoning. It
No.
could be something that we integrate into our site plan and subdivision regulations.
Yeah.
We already do require, I'll go back to like the when, but, comments from police and fire, and I think that's discretionary on the board, but historically, for any development, typically not for something like we saw tonight, but ordinarily, getting comments from police and fire has been a part of our process.
Okay.
And it is true that is, not necessarily, police doesn't necessarily see what fire is commenting. So if we want to write in the planning board regulations that we want to see those comments, there's more than one way that can happen. I don't think, once again, I don't think the planning board is in a position to dictate internal staff process. That's really up to them. The planning board can say, we want to see comments from these different entities, as we do. We want a letter from Penachuk, et cetera.
Yep.
But it's challenging for the board to say, this is how town staff should conduct, their internal reviews. I don't know that we want to prescribe that. We could suggest some different ways, so there is
recommend-
another town, go ahead.
I understand what you're saying, and I think this is a new thing. I know in my time here, I used to sit down with, they had a project that came in, and we all sat together staff-wise, okay, to go over it briefly.
Yep.
It wasn't a meeting per se, but I had the police input. I've always had the fire come in, because they're the picky ones, okay? And then I had the police, look at it, 99% of the time, they said, it's a road, we'll take it from there. The one that, the most is when you get into highway coming off an existing road, then you get more comments for that, because you gotta deal with sight distance, also gotta deal with some drainage and utility work and stuff like that, and it all comes together. I think it's a good idea that those three departments alone, and four, put the building inspector in if you want, because that's code enforcement, zoning as well. Okay, and, just have them chat and come back to you guys, a group, okay? A memo saying we've all reviewed it, we're satisfied. If there's something they're not, the group will write down what it's gonna be, and you'll get it as a report from them, is what you're looking for in the first place.
Right, so what I come back to is the board can decide who it wants comments from
That's
and under
correct.
what circumstances.
Right.
And
Luke Karen, that's all.
how those comments get to the board, I think, is challenging because the board doesn't have supervisory authority over town staff.
Right.
So I don't know that you could prescribe
I don't think so.
how they go about getting you those comments or whether or not they collaborate because you don't have any authority over them. So is it optimal? Absolutely. And I've worked in towns where that's the process, where they meet regularly. Or I am in another town where they don't necessarily meet, but what happens is every new application that comes in is circulated digitally.
Yep.
And then there is a sign off. And so everybody does see. So you have a place where basically you can, it's usually the department, the individual, and then there's a box, comments or no comment. A lot of times it'll be no comment, but it goes to everyone. It even goes to the assessor. Everyone has a chance to weigh in. Usually the assessor's issue is with how they're numbering the lots, or whatever. And if they have comments, this is where the comments go.
Yep.
And then that is provided to the board. So that's another way. It's not saying town staff has to meet on the third Tuesday of the month. It's simply saying, we want to have this, we want to see, and this is the evidence. It's gone to all the departments. They've all reviewed it. They have comments. In that particular community, if it is a significant enough development, they do meet. They do all get together and talk about it, but they don't necessarily do that for every application. It becomes, is there an, and then usually that's pretty much like the DPW director says, I've got a concern about this, or the road agent, let's discuss, or the town, or whatever. So I guess what I'm saying is there's more than one way to get there.
Sure.
I think what the board should decide is who does it want comments from? And that can be a part of the process to
You'll
see,
get it from the
let's have
police
everybody's comments. But again, do you want to try to prescribe?
Yeah, I don't know if
Staff,
it's
I don't
necessarily
know.
our role to prescribe.
It looks,
I don't believe it is.
looks to me like our role would just be to require it, and then they'll do what they need to do to
How
get it.
we assemble it and get it to you is
I
what.
think that's right.
And I had no problem to work with them, to agree with you on whatever.
Yeah, this is what we need in order to make a decision,
That's right.
kind of thing.
It's
How
help-
you
it's-
fulfill
it'll be
that
helpful.
need, I don't really care. But,
Essentially, yeah.
yeah.
That's basically you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you show up and you have a packet, you expect that
Right.
everything in the packet kind of points to our ability to make a good decision.
Right. And that's really
So,
what you want.
Yeah,
Because end of the day, you do have an applicant, you do have to respond in certain
Absolutely.
prescribed times, and so that's part, and I think also, that, we could certainly pull together some examples how other communities do it and recommend, but I think it would have to be a recommendation.
Yep. It can't be a requirement. If it meets the criteria, and we got something as a staff, so, well, we don't like this because of this, this, and this, but what you've done still meets this as far as they can go. You can't change it. You just gotta look at it and make sure it doesn't affect the financial or other issues regarding road work or sites or something like that. Yeah. And the amount of trees, we don't care how many they come down.
Well, you may not.
I know some people who may.
There are
The more I
definitely people who
look
care.
around, there was more fields here than there is now.
I have a question for you, Jay. So, in towns where you've seen, though, some form of a TRC, like, does it slow down, I guess, like the planning board's like decision-making process? Is there like too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak?
So it not necessarily. So first of all, under statute, you actually can create a separate, review committee who is actually delegated authority to review certain plans, and those won't even come to you. So that's possible. I think in the communities that I've worked in directly, generally no, because it's embedded in the process. So it becomes automatic to, it's not common for all staff to meet on every project. That's not common. There are towns where the community development department meets weekly as a staff anyway, and they will discuss kind of what's in front of them. But in the communities that I've worked with that have a regular practice of circulating what's coming through, it's the way things are done, and it doesn't really hold up the process because it's automatic. So something comes in, the clerk who takes it in off the bat, files it, digital copy has come in, everybody's on the CC list, they get it, and so that can be a really efficient way to do it. In communities that say we meet as a staff every Monday, whatever, and so it's always going to be on your agenda. So you're not holding things up, I think, in that way. So that's helpful. Where it has become challenging is
Sounds like this.
well, no, I wouldn't say that. I would just say where it's challenging is where reviews and comments are required, but there is no process. And it leaves people running around. I can't get the fire chief to return my phone call, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
That's where it really gets cumbersome, because if you don't have a process and you don't have buy-in from everybody, and I have worked in communities where that's true, and it's really, really difficult.
I had that happen to me, how many times we go through. I'll say, I've been through so many town administrators in my lifetime. Okay, 'cause things will change to do this. But I do like what Kim is doing here, because I've had this happen 3 or 4 times in the other communities, where she come in and try to get the group together, the planning. But in this town here, you don't have a real planning department. You got Joe. And it's part-time, and Jen, I'm gonna say she may understand the administrative function of the thing, but to get into the nitty-gritty of a design, it's not it's not her forte. A town engineer will handle that, and again, the roads and stuff like that. He could be part of the design review, looking at it, have him look at it as well. He could go and report back to you guys no matter what, but at least he's talked to all the other groups at the same time. What she's trying to do is get a system together that when it comes to you or comes to the plan, comes to a town, it's reviewed by everybody involved, it's supposed to be, and then you will get something from this group, a report, okay, which would be handy.
Which would
It'll
be
go
handy.
right to Jay right off the bat, okay,
And,
'cause he,
Yeah, I mean, in a town the size of Litchfield, it's just completely doable. It just is. The communities where I've found real challenges are very large communities, which have very large departments, where it can become very difficult to reach people.
very political.
And they're often in separate buildings across town, and they don't even see themselves as part of this process. It's low on their list of priorities. That's where it becomes a real challenge.
It does. I've been-
Or in very small towns where your road agent, works 10 hours a week and, comes in on Tuesday morning, and
You
you
don't
just,
see 'em.
that person just isn't getting back to me kind of a thing. So in a town like Litchfield, it's totally doable.
We're good here because we got the staff that's full-time. Okay, I think it's very good. There's gonna be a learning curve for some to work together, and that's fine. Okay, I think the fire department's done well now. I'll say they're more communicating than the past, which is nice. Okay, and with the police, excellent, okay, they've had their own problems too, I'll agree
They're
with that.
right there.
I'm used to it.
They're literally a stone's throw, yeah.
Yeah, want to talk to me? No. All I'm saying is that we gotta, I think what Kim is doing, and we talked about it as the board, it was a good idea to at least start communicating amongst ourselves internally. As you grow, you've been here long enough to find out it has not been going well in some places over the years, I'm just saying. I'll let it go at that.
No, I totally get it, and I think it's, I think that's, it's efficiency, and, that's. the
All
whole
idea is, it's good for the developer or the homeowner or the person who owns it.
Right.
It gives them a better insight of what they're gonna have to go through, which is better.
I mean, we can certainly, it's something we can, we don't have to do this, it's not, I'm just bringing it up because it was brought up this
This is
evening.
not
Oh,
a zoning
absolutely.
issue, this is not a thing that has to go out the boat. This is just an internal operation, how to.
I just wanted to see what everyone's thoughts were.
But it's worth it, and something else we can look at too is a checklist
You
to
got it.
make
That
sure
one-
that these comments are on the checklist,
Yep.
so that it's really clear
That
to
would be handy to
everybody
help us.
that these are needed.
I just wanna say, this is one of my early nights, last night I didn't get out of here till 11:15, from 5.
Let's not do that.
Careful what you wish for.
So, one last thing for the workshop is, do we want to do anything regarding some of the issues or process changes that that came up after some of our larger projects came before us, like requiring ordering of acceptance of the yield plan, anything regarding the subsurface waste disposal, or any of the other issues that were brought up.
So my suggestion would be yes, but right now, we should probably focus on the zoning amendments just because we've got a timeline.
Right.
And the stormwater because it's in front of us, and get through that, and then absolutely, I'm sure there's at least half a dozen off the top of my head, other regulatory changes we should probably be looking at. So,
Like the parking
yes, for sure.
So none of them will require any ordinance changes, so nothing is time sensitive?
At least that I'm thinking of, but there may be other ordinances out there. We also do know that there is the historic district proposal that is out there as well. And, we're definitely gonna wanna take that up at one of our
You should
next
take that up
meetings.
soon.
We'll have to, because we're gonna wanna, it has been I don't wanna say we have to, but that's been brought forward to us. And, so we're gonna need to make a decision as to whether the board wants to recommend that, and we really should do that.
ASAP.
We should do that at our first meeting in December, so that there's still the opportunity for interested parties to do it by petition if that's the course that they wanna go.
And the other side of this, what I would suggest, if you can, Jay, you got a copy of that yet?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we
Did you send it to everybody?
The board saw it, they
looked at it.
came, and they presented it.
I remember here, cause I took a picture of the people who were here, cause Stephen was covering his face.
Yeah, the only change for the historical
Steve.
district that we're waiting on is for them to add a setback where it
Right, the
applies.
distance
or the
from
distance
three.
it applies from
Yeah.
the road, because
So I'll reach out to them and just ask them if that's something that's been done and get it back to us. And so, but we should put that on our next meeting agenda.
that's the only change that we determined that needs to be in the ordinance rather than
Right.
in the regulations.
So that'll be at least 4 amendments that we'll be bringing forward.
Okay.
I shouldn't say we're bringing forward, we will be considering
Right.
to bring forward to vote.
And one thing I was wondering, obviously it doesn't need to be addressed now, is some of the, like the setback for the distance required, yeah, this is setback for the subsurface waste disposal, according to, I think the conservation documents, is set at 100 feet because of the very sandy soils that cover a lot of Litchfield.
That's been on the books for almost 30 years here.
The one thing
Okay.
I'm wondering is, should the ordinance allow smaller setback for more technologically advanced wastewater disposal systems, like aerated systems?
I'm a licensed designer in the state. I'm one of the original ones from 78, going back in the 70s. Okay, and the way the rules read, stay in New Hampshire and all through the whole state, there's a 75-foot wetland setback. Okay, in Litchfield, years ago, they made it 100-foot. I'm not sure, I used to have to go out and inspect them to make sure they complied, and the plans were submitted here before they went to state to make sure it met it, before it went up to state. It's not being done like that now. Okay, so I don't know what's happening, but I'll follow up on that too, for us, so you know what that's about, okay? I'll get back to you on that
And
one.
what do you think about the alternative systems that treat?
They still have to meet the setback of the 75-foot minimum, okay, because you get into the algin the systems and the Duro flows, which they have separate, there's a tank design where you have more than one compartment. Okay, the basic tank is 1,000 gallons with 2 holes at the end. But you got filters they put online now, okay, before it goes into the field, which you can get to the unplug if they plug up, which you do. You also got, when you get into pump systems, where you got it ejecting up to something, they got a slow box area where it's not just flushed out into the chambers. Most of them are chambers today, or what I call them viral, okay, where they could be the pipe is on top of a plastic filter type system on top of sand. Okay, there's no stone per se. They're not using the stone. They're using that, and it's all enclosed and going through a filtration system. There's a lot of designs changes that have been done, that the state has allowed us to be done, and it's quite good. Okay? The 100-foot the setback is going back in the day, when they first adopted something here. Okay, when they put it, because that's what they wanted, the people at the time. But technology has changed so much, because you've got to be 100 feet from your well as well. State says 75, okay? So it all depends. The town over there in Londonderry, it's 75, all the way through. Milford's the same way, Hudson's the same way. I did design work, and I was the building inspector in both those towns. So it's all the same. I haven't checked into that. But you get into mechanical stuff, part of it, you get a shrinkage in the requirement square foot, which is even better.
So, I mean, if it's the will of the board,
We'll
we
go
can
into it if you
draft
want. You
something
want to.
and bring it forward.
Is
It's up
that
to
a
the board.
regulation or ordinance?
That's an ordinance.
And you're gonna supersede the state if you do so.
Well, no.
No, because you're
Correct.
saying
We were-
Litchfield's
we-
100 and the
right.
state's 75.
So if we
right?
wanted
So-
to amend it to 75, we could.
Oh, if you wanna bring it back down, yes. Right now, we supersede it.
Yeah. Would we want to even consider doing any changes? And if so, would we only want to apply a lower setback for more advanced systems?
So I don't have the technical knowledge to know.
They don't do
So
that.
Before we were to do that, I would want to get some engineering input on what are the types where we could do that. I wouldn't want to do that now.
No.
It's still possible for us to do it, but we would have to turn something around
Yeah.
pretty quickly to do it.
It's not gonna be easy because of the type of systems you wanna talk about. You can get it, there's so many out there.
And we probably want Conservation Commission input.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So,
Definitely.
this I'd say there's no rush on this one. My
No rush.
main concern is with like conservation open space developments, lots are smaller.
Right.
And with smaller lots, there's less room for these systems. So,
But you're on
So-
public water.
One of the things that we could do, though, is, kind of put that on our list,
Yep.
which we sometimes do, is this is something we'll look at next year, and maybe have an opportunity to look at the different design types where it might be appropriate, and get some input from, engineering and from conservation.
I can say this, and I know what Jay is saying, that this is not a simple discussion, when you figure out all the stuff in between. I know you can reduce your lot size, because you're on municipal water.
yeah, the only advantage of that is you don't have to worry about the well setback, right?
No, you just gotta pay for your water bill, that's the only disadvantage.
It's just we are getting it to a point where anything beyond a simple change that we haven't already discussed is gonna be challenging
All the way through.
to, not impossible, but it will be challenging.
We got another half hour, what else do you wanna talk about?
Okay.
Subject matter.
I think we've exhausted it. I think obviously, I think we're good with the changes. And I appreciate, Jay, thank you for your hard work on those. And we will definitely come back to revisiting those
Yep.
at some point, so. And thanks everybody for your input for this workshop. It's very good. I think it was very, very interesting, and I think it brought up some interesting points. So,
I apologize for coming.
well,
Wouldn't be the same
I'm
without
so
you.
I'm not saying anything.
I'm so damn sensitive.
So we're gonna move on, if that's okay, because it is getting late, to committee reports. Is there any reports from any committees? We don't have Jeremy here to talk about economic development.
The December and January meetings have been canceled.
December, for the economic development. Oh, that's right, I keep forgetting
Yeah,
you're with that
because
committee.
the next meeting would be the night before Thanksgiving, which isn't gonna happen.
Right.
And Christmas Day is not gonna happen either.
Yeah.
Why?
It's a tough ask.
It's a tough ask.
Yeah, it's a tough ask.
So January.
So
The next meeting will
January,
be in
okay,
January.
very good. The Conservation Commission met this month, the first week of November. Not too much to report. I know that they've been working on putting a bridge at Parker Park
It's all done.
and for the community garden, and I know
Well
that
done.
was a big project for them, but things
You
are.
saw it on Facebook.
Also looking at work on the DeRocher property regarding that, so that was good.
Yep.
The Capital Improvement Committee is actually meeting this Friday at 4,
Yes.
which is unusual, but we need to get, we have to vote. So, and I think we have to
Need
review,
schools.
review the information. I don't know, I mean, yeah, so we're gonna find out from them whether there's anything to add for that. So we had to, and since difficulty with the room, that's why it's at 4 o'clock instead of later in the evening.
One of the things we talked about at the Board of Selectmen's meeting is that we're trying to get everything together. You're all gonna get it, you're gonna get something too, to look at the long-range planning of how we do things, where the meetings are gonna be, when, so we can get all the different committees and groups a place to meet.
Right. No, that's a tough thing.
It is
I
tough.
get it. Yeah.
It is tough right now.
I believe the NRPC is having their meeting tomorrow night.
Yes.
I will be attending that. 7 o'clock at Temple Street, 30 Temple
I
Street.
can't go there, sure.
Anything else that I can think of? I think that's everything. Any approval of the October 15th and 29th minutes? Did everyone have an opportunity to look at those minutes?
Yeah.
I think we tabled For some reason we tabled the last, I don't know, did we table it?
We
or-
No
tabled
one-
the 15th because they weren't available.
They weren't available, that's right, so
Or
that.
they were, but we couldn't find them.
Right, that was it, yes.
Typical
I knew it
thing.
was something, I couldn't remember. That was it, yeah, right. So we had people opportunity to take a look at those. Does anybody have any comments or anything about it, the October 15th meeting minutes?
So, on the October 15th minutes, it says Miss Riley abstained from the site plan application. Would that technically be reclused herself?
Yes,
Yes.
So I think, yeah,
recused, yes.
recused herself. So yeah, that's just a technical thing,
Anything else?
not that I noticed.
Yeah, up front, the very first, where am I, on page 2, towards the bottom of page 2, when we finished the deliberations on the ADU, Mr. Croto opened the floor to public at 8:50 PM. It wasn't that late. We didn't take that long to deliberate on that first article, that first item. It was much earlier. It was closer to
check the
7:30.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Just a typo.
I think it's just a misplaced block. I think it belongs further down in the minutes.
I'll check, I think I can check
So I've got
the video from October 15th and I can take a look at what
Yeah.
happened at that time.
Yeah, I did check the video and confirmed that it wasn't 8:50 PM that we finished up with that piece of business, but I forget the exact timestamp and it's late and I'm tired.
Everything else seems like it checks out because, like, page 5, 3 pages later, it's like, oh, we closed the floor at 8:26, so we time traveled back. So I think everything else in the document is fine except maybe that. So maybe we'll just find the video timestamp. That's interesting. Good catch.
It is, yeah.
Right. So yeah, so this is the first applicant, so it's before so I can just look at who's attending
There you go.
and
Yeah.
they are no longer here. We're done with that by 7:23 PM.
Yeah.
So,
So the timestamps don't align with,
Yeah.
with what was occurring.
yeah, so.
That's all I caught. Otherwise, the minutes looked good to my eye.
Okay. Does anybody want to entertain a motion to approve them as amended?
Do we want to make any changes to that timing?
I would put in the time that you assume, if it's 7:25 or whatever, and then put in parentheses approximate.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Did I go to that meeting? Okay. I couldn't remember. I'm just thinking. I've been to so many meetings.
No, Kevin, you weren't
No,
on camera
not
for that
that.
one.
Oh, this is the 2015th? Yeah, no, you were absent
That was last time, good.
in that one, yeah.
It was a short meeting, right? It's only 5 pages.
Paper cut. Yeah, well, sort of.
I know.
Full storage space? That's for the.
So you need a motion to adopt them as amended?
So I'll make the motion
Right,
to,
if we've,
It's approximately 7:20-ish. I haven't found it.
So
Approximately
that's-
7:20 approximate
close enough.
Yeah,
in parentheses.
you were pretty close, Russ.
so I make a motion to approve the minutes of October 15th as amended.
Okay, I have a motion by Russ, do I have a second?
Second.
And to
Second by Jess.
clarify, the replacement for the abstain versus recuse is
Right.
on the bottom of page 4.
Okay. So I have a motion, second, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve the October 15th minutes as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstained?
Me.
Motion passes 601. Okay. And now we have the October 29th minutes. Anything on those?
Did I go to that one too?
Well, let me see.
Was it Kim there?
No, it was you. You were there.
Good, that's what I was
It's
thinking.
in writing.
Yeah, I remember that.
Now, the minutes on the portal do already feature a correction on page 2, misspelling of Robin Ave.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if we want to call that as amended
Amended,
or if that's
okay.
As shown.
as shown.
Sure.
There you go.
Anything else?
I didn't see anything. Did anyone else
They looked good to
see
me.
anything?
So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the October 29th meeting minutes as shown on page 2.
So,
Correction of Robin Ave.
so moved.
All right, I have a
Second.
motion by Jared, I have a second by Russ. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the approval of the October 29th, 2024 meeting minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 7-0-0.
I didn't say it, but I know it's going to.
Okay,
I forgot.
that's all
I was
right.
thinking.
Any other business? Jay, do you have anything?
I do not.
I do not have anything unless anyone else has anything. Okay. Then I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion it.
I have a motion by Kevin,
I'll second that.
second by Travis. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained. Motion passes 7-0-0. Our business is concluded this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. And we will see you in December. Have a good evening.
I get up early. I gotta be up at 6 in the morning, and the grandson's showing up with the